CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest.
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Jay Rule, and joining alongside me here is...
Told anybody on the Twitter sphere, kind of kept it under wraps, but we are joined by Graceless Passion today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's got nice weather out right now, and so gonna have some fun talking about Malazan for a few hours.
Perfect. It sounds like a pretty good day.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Maybe if you just want to tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you get involved with Malazan? I know before we started recording here, you said you like the first time you read it, you were like 13, but how did you find it? How many times have you gone through it? That type of thing, all that type of good stuff.
So I actually found it when House of Chains released. I was going into Powell's bookstore with my mom. I was a little 13-year-old. And in the new fiction section, I see this cover of a book. It's got a dog like eating a dude. And it, like right on the cover, like, this looks pretty freaking cool. And I asked my mom if I could get it. And she always liked to getting me at least one book every time we would go. So she said, yeah. I started reading it. It was great. You get introduced to a brand new character and you follow him for the whole first quarter of it. And then it jumps back to the other stuff. So everything felt natural and smooth. It felt like a new book series. And then they start talking about this thing called the Chain of Dogs with these other characters. I'm like, am I supposed to know what the hell is going on? That's when I looked up online and found out that it was the fourth book. But I really liked the section there. So I knew I was going to really like the book series. So I bought the other three books. And I was not a fan of Gardens originally. Basically, throughout time, I would reread the books and then the new one would be out because Erickson was a freaking monster when he was still writing the original 10. So they would come out like once a year, once every year and a half or so. So I'd be able to just go through. So I've probably read at least the first half of the books more than 14 times.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn. Yeah, it killed other book series for me for a long while where I didn't enjoy reading other books for a while. I know, like, I think Harry Potter book 6 had just come out. And I never even finished Harry Potter for years because trying to go back to Harry Potter after reading the Malazan, I was just like, God, it just feels like child stuff, you know? Which it's still good, but it just wasn't vibing with me anymore. And yeah, so it was just like more than a decade of just constantly reading Malazan, which, you know, isn't great to do, but it was a fun time.
Well, it might take us a decade to read all the books, so.
Yeah, you guys are plugging along, though. Doing a good job, keeping track, recording it all.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So when did the idea for like the YouTube channel and stuff, when did that come about? I guess because I know like Justin's watched some of your videos. I watched part of one of them and it's like, I just kind of struggle to sit down and watch like YouTube stuff. Like I can watch like fail videos and stuff, but like to find the time to sit down and watch like an hour-long video dedicated to like one subject, I kind of just struggle with that.
Oh, I gotcha. I watch on like 1.5 speed most of the time, you know.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, like how long has that stuff been out there?
I think it's been a year since my last video, unfortunately. I don't really know what got me started. I just there wasn't that much Malazan content. Not very many people were talking about it, especially on YouTube. It was mostly just book reviews, nobody really talking about lore to participate in a conversation. You know, there's a couple Discords, but the forums had died down and stuff. I used to be on the Malazan Empire forums for a while. So I just kind of wanted to get like a little bit of a conversation going, hopefully get some more people interested, because one of the big complaints is that people have a hard time getting into the story because there's so many characters, so much stuff going on. Like it's not a difficult book if you're versed in fantasy, but like especially if you're coming from somebody who hasn't read many fantasy books, it can be very daunting because it does drop you into the middle of the story. So I was hoping to kind of try to explain some certain things, and maybe that would get people interested. Or with like the battles, it's like I like watching battle videos on books or history events that I've never even researched before. So I was kind of hoping that, maybe somebody who gave up on the book series would see that and like, oh, I'll just see what's going on with the battle, and maybe it would get them to want to pick up the books again, and then they end up really liking it.
Cool.
Well, I mean, the videos, I don't know if like this ever was an intended side effect, but it almost made, like, just with the battles that we've experienced in Memories of Ice, it kind of set the tone to watch those with Deadhouse Gates, because like that's like your real first like intricate, intimate battle as far as like all of like the moving pieces. And then you come into Memories of Ice and they're not quite as scaled up as they were in Deadhouse Gates so far as how much we've read so far. But it was nice because like it almost sets the stage and you apply what you saw in Deadhouse Gates with those videos to Memories of Ice. I don't know if that was like an unintended consequence of doing that, but like at least for me, it helped understand everything.
Good. Yeah, because I mean, that's the whole goal. Want to have like just a general military video where like going over the ranks and the types of soldiers and stuff, because they've got a lot of really interesting stuff going on. Not even just the Malazans, but there's a lot of intricate things that would be revolutionary for a lot of our own historical battles. Because if you think back to like the parallel technologies, like some of the stuff would be pretty insane to bring in, but I mean, that's going to happen when you have magic and explosives already. But yeah.
Justin, I don't know if you remember, but when we talked to Erickson after Deadhouse Gates, he said he's watched at least some of your videos. I don't know if he's watched all of them, but he was really impressed by him.
Oh, see, he's left a comment on my Felison video, and as far as I was aware, that was the only one he had seen. But yeah, that's really nice.
What did he say? What was his comment?
So in hindsight, it was not a great video. Unfortunately, I wish I had explained things a little bit better, but he was basically just saying like, thank you for a very passionate defense of this character, which, because I see a lot of hate for Felison that I really don't like, some of which is from people who I respect in a lot of ways. There was a certain character on the forums who I really liked a lot of his discussion, but he called her psychotic cow bitch. And it's like, you might be being a little unfair here. Just the way that people talk about like Haboric and Bowden and stuff in relation to Felison, I wasn't really a fan of, but I do wish I had explained it a little bit better.
Do you think that, I mean, I know that like as far as Reddit goes, there's the like red pill men and the blue pill men. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if they fell into a certain category of.
I would say that definitely has an effect. When
I don't know what you mean, Justin, so I'm just gonna sit here.
red pill and stuff is generally like a lot of guys who tend to be a little bit misogynistic, but they take the red pill to wake up out of the matrix and like see the way everything really is, kind of thing. It's there's definitely a bit of that. A lot of the complaints, I mean, she's a hard character to like, so I don't think that a lot of people have just kind of criticisms of her from a character point of view. But yeah, she's tough to read. She does seem like she's coming out of nowhere, but a lot of people don't really take certain things into consideration. They just go, well, they really like Bowden because he's a fucking badass. And then they see her being incredibly mean to him, or Haboric, who like seems like he's just trying to help. She's being a bitch to him too. So, like a lot of people just kind of react to that, but some of it's definitely crosses the line a little bit, which is what I was trying to respond to. I saved a bunch of comments and stuff that I was going to not show like who said them, but like just respond to the points that they were making. But a lot of it was just going to be saying the exact same points over and over again. So I was like, it's just working me up for no reason.
That's fair. Well, to save you the mental anguish, we'll stray away from this particular subject. I could say that I feel like Derek and I, while yes, I got caught up in the character at first, but coming from and the standpoint of compassion and empathy is understanding is I found the right way to go.
Yeah, is the major point was like a lot of people is after they escape where she's being incredibly mean to them. Like there's a few things going on where she caught them in the middle of them trying to abandon her inside the slave camp. Like they were going to leave her. So she is not happy with them in the middle of that. But then also she's starting to get, some visions, some weird things going on. Dreaming about rivers of blood, like Jesus. She's not in a very healthy mental state.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. All right. Well, I guess we can move on to the actual content and yeah.
I had one more question.
Yeah.
Oh,
did you? So I know you were talking about, again, before we pressed record today, about another battle, but do you have plans to, I assume there's obviously going to be battles in the forthcoming books for us, but is that something you're going to continue with, or are you never sure?
Yeah. So what you guys just got done with Capustan, I definitely want to have a whole like massive video on that of recreating the maps and stuff and trying to go into that. Not necessarily the whole campaign previous to it or anything like that, but like, talk about have a couple background videos on like the gray swords and stuff like that just to set the stage, and then have a full intense battle scene, because especially with the Tenascauri wave that happens, that's something that I've always visualized pretty strongly. And I mean, it's going to be a shitty little top-down view still, but I think it'd be really fun to try to recreate that.
Well, if you need an artist, let me know.
Yeah, you like doing it?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I think that would be cool. It'd be nice to see, like, where Gruntle is compared to Itkovian, compared to, like, Bauchelane and Corbel.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how things are happening simultaneously with the Tenascauri and even the, the Bechtellites and all of that stuff.
Yeah, because it's a lot going on, and I mean, a lot of characters that we really like, and then a lot of horrible shit happening. So
For sure.
I think it'd be fun to break down.
Cool. I think that's pretty much all the questions that I had to ask you before we got into things. So I don't know if you had anything else, Justin.
No, not at all.
All right. Well, I'll run through our beginning of episode stuff here real quick. So before we get started today in our episode, we'd like to take a moment to thank and recognize Silverstone's books. Check out their website at silverstonesbooks.com, where they have a large selection of fantasy, sci-fi, horror books. He's got some cool, like, wooden, I assume they must be handmade bookmarks now, too. A lot of signed books, all the good stuff you want from a bookstore, and it's an independently owned bookstore. If you're in the Nebraska area, check it out. Justin and I still hoping to make it there at some point. Kevin, who runs the store, has been gracious enough to give us a promo code for 10% off your next order. That code is DJ Quest. So check out their website, pick up a book, and help us help out the bookstore and helping other authors. And our list of patrons here in order of subscription, we have Jan the Picker, Luciana Etrigan, Ryan the Topological, Damien the Rock of Faces, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, and Aaron Mott Irregular. I imagine some of these nicknames probably have meanings to you that we don't know yet. So,
oh yeah, we got the best potato right there. So,
while we're waiting for Justin to get back, I guess maybe if you want to let people know where they can find you and check out your videos and all that type of good stuff.
Yeah, I'm just on the YouTube channel Graceless Passion. Beyond that, I mean, I don't really have anything else.
All right, I think we could. Your Twitter handle's the same name, I believe, right?
It's Graceless Malaz, like as in Malaz Island, because unfortunately Graceless Passion was a little too long.
Okay. Well, I mean, it still fits, so.
Yeah.
All right, chapter 20 epigraph. It is the most ancient tale to gods from before the time of men and women, longing in love and loss, the beast doomed to wander through the centuries, a tale of Moors told with the purpose of no resolution. Its meaning, gentle readers, lies not in a soul-warming conclusion, but all that is unattainable in this world. Who then could have imagined such closure? Winter's love, Sobaratha.
Reminds me or draws me to the prologue of this book.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of these epigraphs, if you ever do a reread, a lot of these epigraphs will make more sense, or you'll see little hidden meanings. Some of them are foreshadowed, some of them aren't. A lot of them are just Erickson just kind of having a little fun making a poem. Definitely go back and pay attention to the epigraphs if you ever do a reread, because there's lots of little tiny Easter eggs and stuff like that hidden around.
I see people posts from people who are like, yeah, I don't read those. I'm like, it's in the book. Why, how and why would you not read it?
It's kind of like flavor text on like Dark Souls items, where if you don't read them, you're going to miss out on a decent chunk of the story. But I mean, it doesn't really change too much of the gameplay, but
right.
You're missing out on a little bit at least.
Right. Yeah, it's just, it's right in front of your face. You may as well read it. So,
well, back in the day when I was reading Wheel of Time in middle school, Derek, I skipped the prologues because they were too long.
Well, some of them certainly were when it's 100 plus pages.
Yep. So I definitely appreciated the prologues when I reread the series a couple years ago. Sorry,
well,
small tangent.
Yeah, you're good, man. You're good. We ready to get started here?
Let's do it to it, Lars.
All right. The Palace of Coral was buried on the side of a cliff face. Unforgiving, brutal, but perhaps with some strange beauty. It was a treacherous harbor, water so deep in the fjord that anchors could not touch the bottom, so it was up to the catmen to scale the netting on the cliff face to tie the ships off up on high ground. From the distance, Tok the Younger could see no smoke coming from the shacks the catmen and their families lived in, saw no bodies climbing. There were only corpses tangled in the nets. No ships came to Coral, and the catmen and their families starved. The seer had told him that while holding Tok's arm, partly to keep him from throwing himself off, Tok had no strength left, broken bones, and a sick body. The seer had wanted him to see Coral, the palace fortress that was often attacked by Ellengarth warships, though never taken. Now, with vast forces, the loss to the north meant little to the seer. He was not worried about the cities that would be liberated on the invaders' long march to Coral, a march that offered little in food, and even the wells had been poisoned. And the forces to the south now had a sea full of mountains of ice to contend with. The wind had whipped Tok's tattered remaining clothes, and the seer had given him a cloak, signaling to Tok that there was still a shred of humanity within. Tok even shed a tear. The seer Doman had told Tok of the battles to the south as he looked to the far, barely visible shoreline. He thought they must have reached it by now. They could be standing there looking back at him. Whatever lay between him and Baljag would not discourage her. A goddess was within her, driving her to find her mate. Tok knew her mate hid within him, and that they had traveled side by side, each ignorant of each other's secret. Brutal irony. He thought that Tool would probably not be intimidated, as time and distance meant nothing to Talan Imus. The Segula might feel similarly, since they only sought to deliver their invitation to war. But Lady Envy? She was angry. Now, according to the seer Doman. Tok corrected and said affronted was a more accurate description. She would tire of the hunt and turn back with Gareth rather than cross the ice fields. This made Tok sad, as he did miss her in a sense. The seer Doman spoke, saying he should have seen Coral back in its glory days. Tok surmised that it used to be his home. He said yes, but now his home was in the heart of the seer, which Tok said had even colder winds. Seer Doman was quiet, and Tok was expecting a punch from him, but it never came. The seer Doman said it was a summer day, but not like a summer day in his youth. It used to have a soft, warm breeze. His father used to fish these waters. He would be gone for a week at a time. They would go to the causeway and watch him return. Tok looked into his eyes and saw echoes of a child and watched it die. The seer Doman continued, saying his father had come back and found that his family had embraced the faith. Wife to the Tenniscowry, sons to the ranks, and the eldest training to become a seer Doman. When he saw the uniform, his father did not toss him the ropes. He saw his family, wife wailing, sons with spears and daughters with men 3 times their age. He turned the boat and left. The seer Doman watched until he could no longer see it. It was his way of... Talk interrupted and said, saying goodbye. The seer Doman said no. It was his way of saying good luck and well done. A bell rang behind them, and the seer Doman said their time was over. Tak would go back to his embrace and thanked him for the cloak. The seer Doman told Tak he was welcome. The wind was once warm, and to lean on him while he walked. His weight was nothing.
A very interesting opening to the chapter, I would say.
Yeah. One thing that I picked up, I think it was 3 different instances in this chapter, but he describes the cliff, like the lee side. And I don't know if that's like left or right, but it was just to me, an interesting way to describe something.
It's so there's a windward side and a leeward side. So the windward side would be in the brunt of whatever air currents are going to be hitting you. So a spot that's sheltered from the wind would be like the leeward side kind of thing, like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I have no idea. I thought it was like ship talk, like
it is ship talk, but you can use it to describe other things, but it's a harbor as well. So they use it for pulling in and pulling out sail ships and stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was thinking like port and stern and stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Yeah, it was a very descriptive opening section. And I didn't have too many thoughts on this. The one that I did have, just, Tak looking into the eyes, and he saw the echoes of a child's joy and watched it die. And I wasn't really expecting to see that kind of humanity from the seer Doman, that type of deal. So that kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, it's a nice little touch. Because, I mean, we just witnessed, Capustan, right? We just witnessed some horrific shit going on. They bring it right back, and Ericsson's just like, oh, no, like, there's still regular people here. Yeah, like, they doing some fucked up shit, but, like, they're still normal people. Like, they have a lot of sad stuff going on too. And I don't know, it's very tragic. It's definitely one of the very end is actually my favorite part of like single kind of lines in the book series. Seerdaman saying that his weight is as nothing, and Tak asks like, oh, you mean like easily born? And he replies with, I didn't say that. Like, because it's the weight of just carrying this broken bodied man is just still, it weighs on his soul and everything like that. It's nice and tragic. It's a very good mood setter. Yeah.
Yeah. And just, I liked, that back in its heyday, it used to be a nice place. And now it's, you just get like this image of a dark and foreboding place. And you got these guys that are, their corpses are stuck in these nets on the side of the rock face. And yeah, that's a little dark. But.
Yeah. The whole with his dad showing up and like, just piecing out of there, like, and the fact that he's happy that his dad was able to get away is nice, because like he's embraced the faith, but like you can clearly see that he's upset about what has happened. So I doubt it was very consensual for joining it.
Yeah, embrace it or die, I suppose, is probably what it was.
And the God, like the Catmen. I've always wanted more information about the Catmen. This has always stuck out to me. We like, they're just dead now. Like we find out about this. Oh, there's other type of people. Catmen. Nope, they're dead.
This is the only time they get mentioned then?
There's a couple other spots where like there's a little bit of references, but I mean, I don't think that's very much of a spoiler because they just flat out said they're all dead.
Right.
But
sure.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I just wanted more information.
Yeah, it was an interesting like thing, and you just kind of think like, why didn't they just like climb up to the top and walk somewhere?
Yeah, I doubt they. I think they probably weren't able to really leave, unfortunately, because the whole dictatorship kind of thing going on.
Yeah, that's fair, I suppose.
Just tragic.
How long has it been since you've read Memories of Ice?
Since I've read it all the way through, it's been 3 years or so. So I'm pretty careful about saying spoilers, but I've listened to the chapter before this and the chapter after this and stuff to try to place where things are. So I'll be very careful. I'll try not to say anything, obviously, but yeah.
I wasn't too worried about that. I was just curious how long it's been.
It's I will say I listened to the audiobook for this. Did either of you guys do that?
No,
we're physical readers.
That's good. I listening to the introduction for this, I do not think that the narrator did a good job with Seerdomen and really reading like the pathos of the scene. Like it feels very different than when I just read it myself.
Yeah, I know that in a couple of previous episodes, Derek and I have many conversations about the Tenascowry, and we seem to be kind of split. Derek kind of has a stance of
Kill them all,
whereas I'm more like, well, I mean, these were still people, they were essentially forced to either serve or die, right? Embrace the faith or die,
Mhm.
I would embrace the faith if it was between death and embracing a faith, and if I had to run around eating people to survive. But if there was some savior, right, that came in and was like, hey, you don't have to do this anymore, like, we'll help you rebuild, then I would probably be like, okay, yeah, I don't need this faith anymore, like, I'm out, peace.
Yeah. Most of the people in the Tenascowry are just regular people. Like they're not the women of the Dead Seed and stuff like that. Like they're probably a little too far gone. Might want to just not try to recuperate them. But definitely like a lot of the regular people is just, you're forced into this horrific scenario and you get worked up. Like, yeah, definitely like in the middle of things going on, like, yeah, kill them all. If like they're attacking me, nope. Like, take care of them. But I mean, afterwards, maybe, I think we'll see a little bit more of what's going on there. But
sure.
I feel like they're all too far gone personally, but
yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit of a snack.
Derek, have you ever noticed that like women in the Dead Seed, all they seem to do is wail? They just seem to be like constantly screaming. Like I just think of like, I don't know, some crazy cat lady screaming and throwing her cats at people.
like the lady from The Simpsons.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if you have any insight, Graceless, as to why it is.
I mean,
that, like, whether
you don't go through that with your sanity intact. Like most of the people in the middle of this are not sane at the moment. Like they're starving literally, and most of them are at the point where they're gonna die before they start eating people, right? And then the women who are a part of this, like you don't go through those types of actions without having a mental break, right? So I don't think most of them are even like capable of coherent speech at that point. There's just this drive going on, and a lot of them are not being driven like just by themselves. Like there's definitely things affecting them going into it.
Gotcha. Okay. I just noticed the common theme of them.
Yeah, they
screaming and yeah.
I don't think they can even talk like normally. I think maybe the main one can kind of speak a little bit, but I think most of them are beyond even that.
Gotcha. All right. Cool. Well, yeah, I don't have any particular thoughts additionally to this very good first section here. So
yeah, I'm ready to go ahead. Here with yours.
All right. Section 2. Ikovian watched as the tenement in front of him collapsed. Hedge turned to him and told him that the task was easy. With a nod of acknowledgement, Ikovian watched as Hedge joined up with his fellow sappers. The morning was hot, and life was beginning to return to Capustan. People were crawling through the rubble of their homes. Bodies were retrieved as wreckage was cleared away. Wagons with piles of bodies were being pulled through the streets. Captain Nerul was at his side and suggested that they should proceed. Beyond the west gate was a gathering of the official representatives. They would set out to meet the approaching armies of Dujek and Brood. The parley was set to take place in 3 hours. Tenascowry refugees were arriving from the plain by the hundreds. In response to reports of the Tenascowry tearing peasants apart, he sent the Greyswords out to set up an internment camp outside the west wall. Ikovian wondered how his new destriant was doing, and thought to himself that Tenascowry and the camps would soon become new recruits, if they lived that long. and provided they didn't go broke paying the Barghast for food to feed the Tenascauri. He finishes his thought by saying Fenner Grant, but corrects himself in his head and says Tog Grant. Idkovian was not looking forward to this parley, as he felt he had no real business attending it. They reached the west gate, seeing nothing but a massive hole in the wall. Gruntle, clearly upset, Idkovian reproached and frowned as he asked where the Mass Council was. Stoney spat, saying that the Mass Council had gone ahead as they wanted to have a chat in private. Idkovian can see that this was the reason why she was visibly upset. Gruntle offers her verbal comfort, but fails. Stoney explains that it was the Grey Swords and Gruntle who had kept their city from being conquered, while the Mass Council hid. Idkovian explains that it didn't matter their actions, as since Jalarkin was dead, they were not the city's leaders. Stoney spat that they could have waited at least. Captain Roll turns in her seat and spots Humbrol Tower coming, and they decide to try and catch up with the council once the Barghast arrive. Must have been tired when I summarized the last bits of that, but oh well. So it was a really short section, and I only kind of pulled off a couple of things here. I feel like the majority of the section we are already aware of. We know that Stoney doesn't really have any particular love for the Mass Council because she thinks that they're cowardice assholes. But one of the first things that I had here were just the scene, this visual scene of people crawling through rubble of their homes, bodies being retrieved as, the wreckage is cleared away, and then wagons with piles of bodies being pulled through the streets. And it was even described as like they were like, flies were swarming all over them. And it just, even in my head, that siege just kind of took place. And, it wasn't a very successful one. It wasn't clean. It wasn't pretty. And while it has ended, this right here is a reminder that it's not really over. There's the cleanup. There's the massive bodies on the wagons with the flies all over them. And it just kind of, it takes away the feel of like a win,
Yeah, you got the demo and...
Right. You know what I mean? Like, yes, they were successful, not pretty, but like, Capustan's good. They could do whatever they want. The citizens come out of the tunnels. They can do what they need to do to like rebuild. But like, you don't ever, in the moment when they are quote unquote winning, you don't ever think about like the things that need to happen after, like the families who are like recovering their dead loved ones. And now they have to go bury them. Their homes are destroyed. Like, what are they going to do? Like, the food was probably annihilated by the Tenascauri, right? Like, that's their one chance to eat not bodies, right? So, like, how do you rebuild from this?
Yeah. And it's kind of nice because you see that, like, okay, well, a bunch of the buildings and everything are damaged in it. And, of course, you have to demolish them before you can even, like, take the materials from there to start trying to rebuild some of the other stuff. So, you get to see them go through and try to actually go through a plan of how they're actually going to be rebuilding. You see a little bit of the engineering side, which is fun. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you can tell that even when these armies move on to go try to continue their campaign, like this city is going to be trying to recover from this for months or years even. Just even burying the bodies is going to take more than a month. Like just insane amounts.
I just think of it makes me think of Monty Python a little bit. Bring out your dad.
Yep, dead. Got your dad here.
I feel fine.
The other thought that I had was just like Idkovian inside of his head, right? Like he clearly has created a habit just with his internal monologue about saying Fenner Grant, and now he's at this point where he slips, right? And it just really accentuates the humanity of his character, right? Like we all make mistakes. We all slip. We all, think we're supposed to do something, but, we have an appointment or, you know what I mean? Like it's a small mistake, but it really like highlighted the fact that like he's not just this like guy with unfinished business, that nothing can stop him. Like he still fucks up. He still makes itty bitty mistakes, So I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting, and it like pulled at me for some reason.
Yeah, Ikovian gives me the feels quite a bit. So, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah. Outside of that, I didn't have anything that I had any further comments on. I felt like it was a really short section. And, it's kind of transitional, right? Like it's taking the time to tell us that no, Capustan is maybe free from siege, but there's still a lot of work left to do.
I like how with Stony, you see just kind of how short her temper is. I feel like as we've gone through the book, it's got shorter and shorter and shorter. It's just that fuse is getting ready to blow.
Yeah, she's constantly on edge right now. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm ready to move on. I'm probably, while you read this, going to go get prepared for my section here after this.
Gotcha. All right. They set out across the plain while Humbrol Tower, Hitan, and Kafal were all riding awkwardly on the horses they had borrowed. The Barghast had not been happy at the Mass Council's attempt to usurp power. Tempers had risen. From the reports, the approaching armies were a league or two away yet, while Caruli, Rathhood, Rathburn, and Rath Shadowthrone rode in a carriage pulled by a few of the remaining horses that hadn't been butchered during the siege. Itkovian thought of the last time he had ridden this road and thought of his dead soldiers. Farrakalian, Torun, Sidlis. Despite the rules of the Reeve, they had been his friends, something he couldn't let out in the open as a leader or shield anvil. But now they were his grief, just as difficult to bear as other tens of thousands that were lost, he thought. For now he needed control. He could afford no emotions. They had arrived within sight of the priest's wagons, and Stoney said sarcastically that they would be delighted. Gruntle told her to take it easy. She asked if he thought he was an idiot, not capable of being subtle. Gruntle stopped her, trying to apologize in his own way, asking her to forget that he had spoken, to which she replied that she usually did. Rath Shadowthrone poked his head out of the window and sarcastically said the rest of their honorable entourage had arrived. Itkovian thought to himself there was nothing honorable in the tone that was spoken. Stoney said she was surprised that he even knew what honorable meant. Rath Shadowthrone turned his head to her and said, shouldn't she be on her knees? Stoney said she'd give him a knee. Gruntle interrupted and said he could see outriders should they continue. Rath Shadowthrone said they were early. Gruntle said that was pretty unprofessional of them, but they could slow down to give the others time to prepare. Rath Shadowthrone said that would be a good idea and went back into the carriage. Stoney said she would cut him into very small pieces. Gruntle remarked at her subtlety. Itkovian could only stare at the two of them. That was a fun little section, too.
Yeah.
Itkovian, I guess this is kind of my only thought that I jotted down, but as we talk, we'll see maybe any other things come up. But I think it's interesting now that he's still processing his own grief, I guess, like for myself and other people that are in tough situations. It's not very hard to put up, those walls to project strength or to pretend that like your emotions could be seen as weakness. And I kind of feel like it's a mechanism to keep others around you calm, so that, especially like if you're in a role of leadership, if people look to you and you're not panicking, then, why should the grunt panic? Why should, just the Joe Schmo, if your leader's not panicking, I think that projects a sense of ease.
Yeah. And he's like, they're still in the middle of recovering from this. And a lot of people, soldiers especially, it gets brought up a few times here where, these are people who are your friends. They're, your companions, you fight with them, you want to protect them, they want to protect you. And now most of them are dead. And so he knows that this is going to be a huge grief. He's thinking about his friends the last time they went on this road. But right now, he's about to go to a meeting. He needs to be able to think about what everybody's saying. Like, grieving is a process that is a luxury when you're in the middle of wartime or needing to make decisions and stuff. And so he's definitely trying to keep a tight grasp on that, because it can be very distracting, which, it's not the time for a release yet. So
yeah, I mean, it could get you killed, right? If you let your emotions get too out of check, you gotta, again, as a leader, I mean, I would assume, especially a military leader, if you've got people below you that you're commanding and they're going to be put in a tough situation, not the same tough situation that you are put in as having to command them, go take this building or whatever it is. Yeah, those guys are physically in danger, and while I mean, a good commander, I think, should worry about them. You have to like compartmentalize that, and you can't deal with that right now. You just got to deal with the objective.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if I had any particular thoughts. I like Stony. So
Yeah.
anything with Stony in it, I'm like, I could see her doing that.
I will cut you into very small pieces.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, she's very fun.
I hope she gets her chance to do it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Mass Council. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, they're a blast. They're very wonderfully unselfish people, you know.
Right.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I didn't have anything else here. If neither of you guys did.
Oh, I thought section 4 was my long one, but never mind. Cool. I unprepared for no reason, or I got prepared for no reason. That's okay. But yeah, no, I don't have any particular thoughts for section 3.
Sure.
All right. Picker was sitting on some steps of what had been a temple. She was sore from moving rubble. Blend suddenly appears out of nowhere and offered her some water. Picker jests about Blend vanishing when there was hard work to be done. They sat watching Paran and Quick Ben saddle up some horses from across the street. They were preparing to head out to the reunion with Brood and Dujek. They had been pretty chummy with each other ever since meeting back up, which made Picker very suspicious. Quick's schemes were never pleasant. Picker mentions to Blend that she wishes she was going. Blend asked why, because they wouldn't have to do any walking. Picker suggests because it would be easier to lurk about like Blend does, instead of doing manual labor like everyone else. Blend explains that she's been busy enough gathering information. Picker wonders as to who she's been listening in on. Blend gives her a report on what she's been hearing. Shadow Throne, which was the temple that Picker was leaning against, were going to enact some type of revenge on some necromancers. The Barghast had been cheering. The Mass Council was purchasing food for the Capustan citizens. The Grey Swords were buying food as well for the Tenascauri refugees outside the city. Picker was appalled by this news and asked why they would be fed at all. Blend says that this was a good question and admits that her own curiosity was intrigued. Picker assumes that Blend has put it all together. Blend explains that the Grey Swords are sworn to Fenner, but it seems they've lost their god. Blend is unsure of the tale that led them there, but that was irrelevant because the company's surviving commanders rode out to the Barghast camps and declared something with the gaggle of Barghast witches. Picker puts it together that they have switched gods. She hopes that they haven't switched to Treach. Blend tells her that it wasn't Treach, but rather Tog and Fandaray. Blend explains that the Grey Swords are essentially wiped out and are looking for recruits among the Tenascauri. They both converse about the semantics of the Tenascauri being recruited when Captain Paran strode up. Paran asks Picker where Spindle was. She explains that he went off with Sergeant Ansi as someone has come out of the tunnels claiming to be a prince of one of the cities to the south of Capustan. Paran is in disbelief at the news of Spindle and Ansi making themselves elected officials of One Arm's host. Quick Ben, after laughing, interrupts Paran and tells him that they should probably get going. Paran says to never mind and to just find Spindle and Ansi and have them bring the Prince Arad to the thrall with word that the real representatives of One Arm's host will see to him. She watched the captain and the mage ride off and turned around asking where the hell Blend went. Blend makes some excuse about needing to investigate something. Picker catches on and says that Blend was scared, and to wait until she told all the other bridge burners. Blend explains, but doesn't finish her sentence as she vanishes again. Picker turns around to see two figures riding towards her. The necromancers approached her and told her that they needed supplies to resume their journey. Picker steps closer and drives her gauntleted fist into his face. He was out cold. She stepped behind the other and knocked him out with the pommel of her sword. Mancy was running up behind and shrieked for Picker to not hit him. Picker asked if these men were his. Mancy looked discouraged, but said that they were. Picker told Mancy to remind the two how to address them properly. Blend suggested that they get moving. Very funny section. I'm really starting to love Picker and Blend. Because I can see it. Ever since it was the glass ceiling was shattered for me when they were like, oh, their names usually insinuate some type of personality trait. And I'm like, oh, got it. That actually makes sense. And for whatever reason, shit just clicks now. Like Blend, right? Like she's just always lurking in the shadows. She's always like coming up and surprising people whenever she wants to have a conversation. So yeah, I don't know. It just makes sense. So like now every time we get these types of sections with them, like that is what I'm imagining inside my head.
Yeah, I mean that is what's going on. She just like phased into the shadow, just like, nope. People coming up, important people? No, I don't want to be seen. Screw that.
Right. Like I'm just gonna screw it. Who cares? It doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will always find it amusing. I don't know if I'll ever get over that image, right? She's just there when you conveniently need her. And sometimes when you need her, she's not there, like you never know.
Yeah, it's great because they'll always play it up as if she's like, she thinks she's really talented with doing it, and like, oh yeah, she's very subtle. And then like in the scene, she went into a temple that she didn't realize she was going into. Like she just thought it was some like little side building, and so she's like, oh, like, oh no. But yeah, it's just a good time. Like the little subtle humors. I love the Marines especially. Anytime.
Mm-hmm. And wasn't it? It was a Shadow Throne temple too.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. She had no idea, and she was like, oh.
Yeah. Right. But a lot of the information that Blend is kind of talking to Picker about, I mean, it makes sense to me. I don't really necessarily have any particular questions about that. I feel like it's things that we at this point in the read kind of understand and acknowledge. So outside of that, the only thing that I had that I thought, and it was mainly just amusing, is just Quick Ben just laughing his ass off at the antics of Spindle and Antsy. Because Quick Ben's laughing, Paran is like in captain mode, right? Like, no, this is actually really serious. But how does anybody take him seriously when Quick Ben's laughing his ass off? You know what I mean? So
yeah, Paran's got the responsibility. Quick Ben doesn't care at all. Like, he's just like they just get it. They just get any amusement that they can out of it, and Antsy and Spindle are always good for laughing at, mostly,
Yeah, exactly. It was just funny, but outside of the humor section, I don't know if I really had anything that I thought needed to be talked about, as I feel everything else is pretty self-explanatory up to this point.
I enjoyed the necromancers being knocked out cold.
I was gonna bring that up, yeah, because it's just they're being rude. And they're the ones who are demanding respect. And it's like, okay, but you're talking to somebody who just punched you out. So clearly, you aren't able to judge other people. It's great. I know Jan or Yan, I can't remember. Jan. I know he was talking about the novellas with the necromancers. You guys are gonna pick those up too, right?
We planned on doing everything. So it's not just the main 10. We want to read everything in publication order. So
yeah,
Blood Follows will be next.
Perfect. Well, I mean, they're fun. I just enjoy their sections. Anytime I see them, they're just a good time.
Gotcha. I don't know what it was. I mean, now that we're talking about the necromancers, at the very beginning of the book, chapter 1 through chapter 6, in those chapters where you get them, you kind of get this sense of invincibility from them, but then you read this section and Picker knocks them both out. They seem to be very unattentive,
because they're used to being, they're super strong, right? They can do whatever they want almost everywhere, and so they don't pay attention to anything. They think that they are invincible, and then they keep walking into these situations where they get put in their place and they don't learn.
Yeah, I'm starting to notice a pattern. Quick Ben invades their home, and while they are aware of it, they're just like, yeah, no, it's cool. I'm just oblivious to whatever. It's fine. My demon was let go. I guess it is what it is. I don't know.
I'll get another one.
Yeah, I'll get another one. I don't know. It's almost kind of spoiled arrogance almost.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because Boucherlane, obviously, he styles himself as like a nobleman kind of thing like that, where people should be kissing his shoes, kind of thing. He's very self-assured and thinks that like there's pretty much nobody who could hold a candle to him. And so, yeah, he'll just in the middle of talking to Quick Ben, just, oh, no. He very quickly lets you know that that's not the case. But like, he's just so casual about like, well, I mean, I'm going to kill you now. And then it doesn't feel like I don't know. It's a good time.
Yeah, it is a good time. I'm interested to read more of them. So.
Yeah.
I would really like to see an interaction with them and Calor.
That would be pretty fun.
Because I think they kind of feel like they have similar like attitudes and stuff, and I think they would just clash. I don't know what kind of antics would happen, but
I could see it.
I think so.
Cool.
Anything else there, Justin? Should we move on?
No thoughts there.
All right. I feel like we're going faster than I thought this was going to go so far.
We're about to stall out, though.
Yeah, you got your big section coming up.
We could have an entire episode just on that section.
All right. Bran and Quick Ben rode within 1,000 paces of the Tenniscourie encampment, but neither spoke until they were past it. Bran said it looked like trouble was approaching. Quick Ben asked why. Bran said the captains might like to take their vengeance on the Tenniscourie. They'd likely have the Mass Council's blessing. Bran wondered to himself why he thought he saw something from the corner of his eye on Quick Ben, but when he looked closely, he saw nothing. Quick Ben said that would be a mistake on the council's part, and it looked like the Grey Swords are ready to defend the Tenniscourie if necessary with their defensive actions they've taken. Bran said they will probably become unpopular pretty quick. Quick Ben said they paid a heavy price in defending the city. Why not recruit them? Bran said the memory of their heroics could vanish in an instant. There's only a couple hundred Grey Swords left now, and if a few thousand captains charge them, Quick Ben reminded Bran that these were the Grey Swords that survived. He wouldn't worry about them too much. Aside from that, the Mass Council would be foolish to hold a grudge, and he was sure they would learn more at the parley. Bran said that was assuming they were invited. They'd probably be better off with a private conversation with Whiskey Jack. He didn't have much to say to the others that would be attending, just a report to deliver. Quick Ben said he wasn't planning on talking, only listening. Quick Ben said he saw riders to the north. Bran said the second gathering had taken place. Quick Ben didn't understand how he knew this. Bran thought to himself, because she had stopped reaching out to him. Something unexpected had happened and left them reeling. Bran told Quick Ben he just knew, and that Silver Fox was the lead rider. Quick Ben asked if it was Tattersail's soul that still dominated Silver Fox. Bran could not say, but did say that whatever hope they held that they could predict Silver Fox's actions, they should stop that now. She had become a bone caster. They waited for the riders to approach. Krupp's mule trying to take over the lead spot. Quick Ben told Bran he wished he had seen what she had seen. Bran thought to himself that it was plain to see nothing went as planned. He could tell by her posture. She surprised them and defied them, and the Talan Imus answered in an unexpected way as well. Even Krupp looks off balance. Silver Fox looked at Bran. It was as he thought. She put up a wall between them, and damn, did she look like Tattersail now. A woman grown, not a child. He thought that every time they met, he must readjust everything. Quick Ben tried to congratulate her, and she cut him off, saying, no. She did not know any explanation and wouldn't answer any questions. Krupp had already tried to play that game. She has a short temper and does not recommend testing it. Quick Ben shrugged and said, fine, be that way. Silver Fox snaps and says she is this way. The anger he would face is night chills, and the rest would do nothing to stop it. Quick Ben only offered a grin in reply. Krupp spoke up, asking if they were riding to their armies. If so, they would accompany them. Krupp continued to prattle on before Silver Fox told him that it was enough. Bran thought to himself that if anything had existed between him and Silver Fox, it was all but gone now. She was a bone caster, and Tattersail has been left behind. Perhaps they both moved on, and what they have grown into their hearts cannot overcome. Bran thought he would not have pity for himself. They have tasks they need to accomplish. Bran gathered his horse's reins and said Krupp was right. They needed to get moving. It was late already.
Oh, Silver Fox.
Poor kiddo.
Yeah. So, Justin, graceless. And he thinks he sees something on Quick Ben's shoulders. And to me, the only thing that makes sense is that he's like out of the corner of his eye or whatever, he's catching a glimpse of Talamandas.
Yeah.
I don't know what else it could be.
No, that's exactly it. You're right. Yeah. Because Quick just has him riding on his shoulder. And yeah, I don't know if it's saying anything like if it's necessarily Paran like having anything special about him, like being able to see it, or if it's just something that anybody else would be able to see in the corner of their eye. And then as you like try to look at it, it doesn't seem like there's anything there. Because Talamandas is being hidden, by magic and stuff, but magic's not perfect. So.
But I don't know. I always thought it was because Paran's the master of the deck.
Which, I mean, it could be. It definitely could be that. But I know there's a couple parts here coming up where like other people notice weird things with Quick Ben, but
yeah,
I don't know.
He definitely helps things in the next section.
Yeah. But like it definitely could be the fact that he's having this power within him as well, that maybe he's able to bleed through that a little bit, but
sure. Okay. Yeah.
My other thought here, Quick Ben, he just shrugs and he's like, fine, be that way. And Silver Fox kind of snaps back at him. He's just, he's definitely just poking the bear. And it just sounds like something, like as a teenager, I would have said that to my mom and she would have like chewed my ass up for whatever dumb thing I did. But
yeah, she's angsty right now.
Well, and I mean, she just got back from the second gathering, which I'm sure that maybe even a part of her maybe feels a little bit bad that, the Talani mass just want to rest, right? And she has to like be the asshole that tells them no.
Yeah. I mean, that made her mad because the whole fact, like, so she's just created like for this purpose and they don't really seem to care about her beyond that. And so it's like she says, I mean, it's like she's being abandoned again, which, yeah, as a little kid, like that's very upsetting, which I mean, because I still view her mostly as a little kid. Like she's being informed by these other guys, but like she's not Tattersail. She is still Silver Fox. She's only like a year old or something like that.
Technically.
Yeah. Which I mean, she's not like she would be a little older than that, like mentally and stuff, but it's still like she doesn't have very much experience and it's not like the souls inside of her are totally in line,
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, it's not harmonious. I'm sure that, on top of a 1-year-old mind mixed with a 20-year-old or 200-year-old cadre mage. And then, of course, you've got an elder god and potentially the memories of her lover all just competing for whatever it is that their motivations would. Yeah, I don't even fucking know how to say it, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. So, Derek, I'm assuming that you don't really like this part where they mention recruiting the Tenniscowry. What's going on with that? You don't think they got a good point?
I mean, I wouldn't trust them. I think they're just too far. Like, I think they're just like, I know they're like regular people, but I assume that they're just like insane. I mean, I would think that
they're definitely not all there.
Yeah. So like, how do you think you can control that? How do you think you're going to brainwash a brainwashed person to your views? I don't think you're going to be able to. So I think the safe thing is just to put them all out of their misery.
So like one point is they're a mercenary cult. So like they want people who aren't necessarily afraid to die, which I think you don't really come out of this unscathed in that point of view. Like they probably don't give a shit right now. They have like nothing that they hold dear. And so if you then supplant that emptiness with the faith of the gods, the Wolf, Tog, and Fandere, you give them something to believe in. You give them a sense of home, a sense of camaraderie again, their brothers and sisters, and keep them fed. Like, I think they'd be very loyal and fanatical and would actually probably be very like a good system for setting up like within a mercenary cult specifically, like, because they've got nothing right now. But I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying either, but I think it was like Blendon Picker too, who were talking about like, if you have an army of people who are like, they'll eat people when the going gets rough, like that's great for an army. You don't have to feed them as much.
Right. But that's just like, are they going to be willing? Like, are they going to be willing to take on these new gods? Are they going to be like, no, I still want to eat people?
Yeah, which I mean, I assume that like they aren't just taking anybody, like they'd still have to like interview basically. I don't know how it works. Like, like what kind of cover letter do these guys have,
At what point do you decide that they're too far gone, I guess? And
yeah, which I mean,
If
a
their
lot of them
cover
are going to
letter
die.
just says brains, 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 then they're too far gone.
Yeah, it's like, maybe not this one.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just the safer thing. Just eliminate them and rid the world of their
Yeah, but what if it was you?
What if I was in there?
Yeah, what if it was you, where you had gotten driven to the point where you had to eat people in order just to survive?
Then I mean, I don't. I probably wouldn't have much thoughts about anything. I wouldn't think.
Yeah, but then you come out the other side of it where you've now like you're in a safe position now. You have food, and like you aren't necessarily insane. Like because there's definitely a lot of them are straight up insane. Like at this point, but there's definitely going to be some in there who can kind of come back and at least like have some sort of regular life again.
I think I would be like paranoid. I would be so afraid of like, is the same thing going to happen again? Are they just going to, throw us into a fight with nothing?
Yeah, but would that make you be more like motivated to keep your brothers and sisters like protected and like keep everybody like well fed and stuff? Is that going to drive you harder to prevent going back to that horrible situation?
Maybe, but I mean, if you're just a grunt again, how are you going to enact that change? How are you going to stop it from happening over somebody that has that power?
Yeah, that's fair. But part of it is just the fact that like, you are like, if you join, you're fighting with your brothers and sisters. It's not just a regular army where it's just a job. Like it's becomes your way of life kind of thing. But I don't know. Clearly, the Grey Swords think it's a pretty decent idea.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I get it on their side where they need to replenish their numbers. I just,
yeah,
that's kind of like my hard line in the sand is like I wouldn't take these guys.
No, that's totally fair, especially if you just wouldn't trust them, But
Justin's maybe a little more trusting than me, so.
I don't know if it's necessarily that I'm trusting. Like my hard line is that like, yes, there's probably going to be the insane fanatics. Like it's not a Sith deals in absolutes. It's not all the Tenascaure are going to be recruited. It's not all of them won't be recruited. It's more this like line of like, there are things that I have to do as like an adult father that are societally like acceptable, right? And so like whether I agree with them or not, like I still have to do it. And there's just I'm taking into consideration that there are Tenascaure who like even though they are forced to societally eat people, still question it. They still have it just because like they have been forced to either join or die, that they have lost all sense of like their subconscious. Like, I still think that there are people amongst the Tenascaure that are thinkers, that are philosophers, that, like, still are just doing what they have to do just for the sake of surviving, but that doesn't mean that their brain has just devoid of thought. You know what I mean? So, like, that's my hard line, is that there has to be some type of subconscious, like, oh my God, I'm fucking eating this person that I just killed. Why am I doing this? Oh, right. Because like I need to not die. I don't want to die. So like it seems like a very temporary solution in the hope, right? That eventually I won't have to do this anymore.
Which one thing I just thought of was like, what about like shipwreck survivors where they end up eating somebody during which, and like when they come back, do you think that they're still gonna like, it's not like most people who are in that situation, they didn't crave to keep eating people or anything like that. Like they still came back and then they grieved and stuff, but they were still regular people for the most part. But
maybe
like,
with some PTSD, but
yeah, definitely PTSD. But like a lot of them probably are just going to be regular people again, because the human psyche can definitely overcome quite a lot just even reading like some war memorials and stuff like that, where some of that stuff's crazy. But I don't know. Yeah, just kind of thinking of it like, if you come across shipwreck survivors, like, I mean, in my case, like I would definitely want to help them, but I could definitely see where you'd be concerned, like, of bringing them on your ship, where, especially if it was one of the guys who was very clearly like, okay, well, we're going to kill Bob right away.
He looks good. Yeah.
Maybe if I found out that guy was like one of the survivors and he was just gung ho about killing other people in order to do this, like, maybe not,
You can wait for the next ship.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I get the concern.
I feel like these Teniscauri have just been conditioned, by the seer that like this is your way of life, and they're just living in this black hole of we have nothing, we don't get anything, but we're supposed to worship this guy, and we can eat people. I don't know, I don't know how I feel about like this other group coming in being like, hey, you know what? You can worship our gods, and you don't have to eat people, but you still got to fight. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I think that Captain Nerol in the next section says something in like beautiful. I called it out and we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
but I think that there is a very specific reason why she is now the shield anvil and Idkovian is not. And I think that was just, I don't really know if it was Idkovian's decision or if it was the Barghast witches who made her the shield anvil. I recall those specific details, but she's there for a reason. And I guess to make things short, she will not go about it the way that Idkovian did, is the sense that I get.
Well, should we hop to it?
Oh, God. So I managed to, I think it was like 4 pages total. I took an 18-page section and made it 4 pages. So I'm sure that the summary will probably suck because it's lost the gooiness.
It's a big event.
Yes. And there's a lot that happens, but it's all from Idkovian's perspective. So here we go. Here's section 6. This is going to take me a while. So y'all grab your popcorn and your blankets, snuggle up next to the fire, grab your loved ones, hold them close. Here we go. A large sheet of burlap had been raised over the hilltop, and the hilltop itself was surrounded by guards. Idkovian stopped his horse and observed the figures underneath the tarp. The mass council's carriage had stopped, and the 4 mass council members stepped out. Hatan dropped down from her horse and approached Idkovian. She tells him that she has missed him and that his tale has run through the clans. After some playful conversation and flirting, on mainly Hatan's part, with Idkovian, Hatan leaves in frustration and heads up the hill. Idkovian watched her depart and then shifted his gaze to the mass council priests. They were heard complaining about the walk up the hill and how it was an insult. Karuli says it wasn't an insult, but warns them about the insects. Humbrol Tower laughs at the priest's plight and suggests that they should have smeared themselves with behedron grease. Gruntle quips that they were slippery enough as it is. Stony interjects with comments of her own. Idkovian watched as the 2 Daru set off, followed by Tower. Captain Nerol is heard saying, "Sir?" And Idkovian tells her not to wait, as she represents the Greyswords now. Idkovian studies the surroundings and observes that Dujek and Brood armies were nowhere to be seen. He glanced at the guards and wondered if they thought he was an officer and should be attending. He was, after all, garbed as one. He removed his flare and set them aside. He ends up trading helmets with a man named Azra Gile. After some conversation about the quality of the Malazan's helmet, Idkovian asked if the parley would be offended if he approached. He would only listen and not offer any of his opinions. The guard, Azra, said that they would be honored by Idkovian's presence, but if the former shield anvil wanted to not be noticed, then he should definitely approach the hill from the back. Making his way to the backside of the hill, he observed the 2 armies encamped to the west. He thought to himself how impressed he was, and thinks about how Brukalian was right about this foreigner army being the relief that they needed from Kolpath's numerous forces. If only they had held out longer. He began the ascent up the hill, taking in the scenery as he went. A large table had been set up underneath the tarp, yet everyone was still standing under the sun. Itkovian angled off to the side of the tent. He was noticed by a Malazan who then whispered something to another, and they slowly turned to study him. A large warrior with a hammer strapped to his back approached him. The man explains that they have all been waiting to meet him, the defender of Capustan, shield anvil of the Grey Swords, and then introduces himself as Brood. Itkovian explains that he is neither of those things anymore. Brood explains that he is aware, but asks Itkovian to step forward anyway. Itkovian asks if it was to reveal his shame. Brood wonders what he means by shame, and Itkovian explains that Brood called him the defender of Capustan, but he did not actually defend Capustan. His orders were to hold the city until Brood and Dujek's armies arrived, and that he had failed. Everyone sat in silence after hearing this. Brood attempts to assure Itkovian that he did not fail, he simply couldn't win. Itkovian understands where Brood is coming from, but doesn't want to debate the semantics of what took place. He was simply there to observe and offer no opinions. As if by silent agreement, the players of this meeting all made their way towards the table. Itkovian observes and takes in the various commanders of each and every faction. Wrathhood begins with menial complaints about the location of the meeting, when Stony interrupts, calling him out for his complaints. After a few more lines of squabbling between the two, Karuli interjects and says that he has a couple questions for the foreign armies. Karuli asks why Rake was missing, as he has questions about Moonspawn. Brood told Karuli to pause for a sec, as he doesn't feel they've reached the part of the conversation to be discussing tactics. As far as Brood, was concerned, Capustan was merely a temporary stop on their march. He asked Karuli if he wishes to join the campaign, as it seems that the Mass Council's concern at the moment is the rebuilding of Capustan. Karuli responded and said that the questions were exchanged, yet there were no answers. Brood picks up what Karuli is laying down and replies to Karuli's original question about Rake and the Tistandi and how they've returned to Moonspawn. They will play a vital role in this war, but no more elaboration will be said at this time. Wrath Shadowthrone makes a quip about Rake. Karuli shoots Wrath Shadowthrone down with a single sentence and then turns his attention back towards Brood. He liked Brood's answer, and so will sufficiently answer in return, and confirms to Brood that the Mass Council's overarching concern is the reparation of Capustan. Regardless, though, his companions are servants to their respective gods and interim governors. No one here can explain that confusion among the Pantheon. He points out Brood and his hammer, and the struggle he faces with the responsibility it entails. The Grey Swords have lost their god, and bent the knee to two others. Gruntle is reborn a new god's mortal sword. The Barghast gods have been rediscovered. Then the Malazans, the only unaspected agents at the table. Itkovian wondered about Brood's hammer and the responsibility Karuli had implied. Kaller's laughter broke the silence, and explains that Karuli is a masked council member, but yet not masked, and it seems that his fellow companions don't even want him there. He frankly asks Karuli which god he represents. Karuli smiled deviously and told Kaller that he didn't look too great with that curse of his. Kaller snaps and tells Karuli that he thought it was cruel under that measly disguise. Karuli explains that manifesting physically was problematic. Kaller retorts that Krul's power was lost. Krul explains that it wasn't lost. It simply evolved. Kaller retorts that Krul's power was lost. Kaller reached for his sword. Brood steps in and tells Kaller to sheath the sword, and the warlord's patience was wearing thin. For a few seconds, Itkovian watched the group. To think, an elder god was sitting amongst them. Karuli reiterated that it was just a limited manifestation. Gruntle interjected that it had better be on behalf of Harlow's fate. Sorrow wore on Karuli's face. Krul apologizes that he couldn't have done more. Wrath Shadowthrone boldly says that he's unfit to sit at the Mass Council. Whiskey Jack was heard laughing, and Stony and Gruntle gang up on Rash Shadow Throne and explain that he's an elder god and has seniority. Stony, Gruntle, and Rash Shadow Throne throw more insults at each other before Brood brings things back to the task at hand. Brood tells Karuli that his words are accepted and states that the Doman concerns them all. However, the threats against the Pantheon and the Warrens does not directly stem from the Doman. He bluntly states that they are here to come up with a plan on how to organize the forces. Karuli said that this was accepted provisionally, of course. Brood asks why provisionally. Karuli explains that he anticipates a few masks to be coming off. Umbro Tower states that it was simple enough, and then has his son Kafal explain the strategy of the Barghast joining one arm, and the Grey Swords would be in the other army, as the Barghast cannot abide by traveling with the Tenascauri. The Grey Swords' new commander simply agreed to this, assuming that Brood and his army could stomach traveling with the Tenascauri. Brood asked if they could truly find something worthwhile in such creatures. Shield Anvil Norel gave a beautiful response, one so profound that it made Itkovian reflect on the pride and envy he was currently feeling at the words spoken. He decided to discard the envy he was feeling. Wrathburn turns the conversation to that of Brood and his hammer. Brood's grin was feral as they debated whether to awaken Burn or not, both taking one side or the other. In their bickering, Brood leaves Wrathburn speechless. Gruntle takes a moment to add that the gods never learn, that mortals are not so easily manipulated. Burn tells him to be silent. Wrathburn demands that Brood give her the hammer, and she demands it. Brood did just that, and then dropped the hammer into her waiting hands. The hammer was so heavy that it broke her wrists as it fell to the ground. Dujek looked at the woman without any compassion and told Artanthos to go get a healer. Brood took this time to speak to the priestess and explained that the difference between the priestess and her goddess was faith. As the healer approached, Brood told him that he would heal her himself. Caladan Brood explains that the priestess only saw two options for him, and indeed the sleeping god at first did as well. She gave him the weapon, but also the freedom to choose. He explains that it took him a long time to understand and always felt himself a coward for not doing anything, but a small measure of wisdom lodged itself in his mind. Cruel is heard saying, Burn's faith, that Brood would find a third choice. Cruel said that this was a generous act for the warlord, as it was apparent that the priestess had abandoned her god long ago. Ikovian had not seen high Denal use since Carnatus. It had been fraught with the infection poisoning the warrant, but what he saw now was clean and powerful. Cruel rose suddenly, and Ikovian watched as Cruel set his gaze on a group that had arrived on the hilltop. Haran was the only one he recognized, but Cruel's gaze lay on a man standing beside Paran. The man shrugged unusually as if there was overbalanced weight on his shoulders. Brood and Wrathburn rose together, her bones back to normal. She leaned against the warlord. Her face had an expression of shock. Kaller demanded to know what that was, as there was no poison detected in the warren. Cruel smiled and offered an explanation. A moment later, Ikovian's eyes narrowed as there seemed to be a double meaning to what Cruel had said. A moment later, the woman standing next to Paran approached the table, and Kaller was seen taking a step back. Silverfox is the first to speak, and Brood and her share a few comments before Brood assumes that the second gathering has taken place. Silverfox says that it has, and Brood asks if another army has joined. Whiskey Jack saw Paran and headed towards him for a private word. Idkovian watched as Quickben followed the pair. Silverfox answers Brood's question and tells him that the Talan have tasks that will lead them into Seer territory, and should there be more Kachain Shamal, they will take them out. Brood asks if she can elaborate on these tasks. Silverfox responds and says that they were private matters. Kaller snaps and says that they want the Seer, as they, the Talan, know what he is, a Jaghut tyrant. Silverfox asks what they would do with the Seer. He is insane, his mind twisted by the warren of chaos and manipulated by the crippled god. The only action was execution, and that it was the Talan that were going to do so. Dujek interjected and said that not always, as the Talani mass had led Ajak Lorn to free Reyest, a Jaghut tyrant. Silver Fox looked puzzled at the thought of the clanless one, but the Jaghut was raised from a cursed sleep and died anyway. Haran interjected and said that this wasn't true, as the last time he had saw Reyest, he was still pretty animated. Silver Fox spun to Ganoz in shock and asked what the hell he meant. Krupp was the one to respond and explains to Silver Fox that a house of the Azath took the tyrant. The Malazan plan was to have Rake and Reyest battle, but they never went face to face. Silver Fox said that she saw little relevance to this tale, and if the clanless one had broken his vow, then he would have to answer to her. Dujek explained that his point was that she makes the claim that they do or don't do is separate from everyone else, and that insisting on detachment, and as a Malazan veteran, that was simply untrue. Silver Fox admits that maybe the Logros got confused, but that confusion is long in the past, unless everyone here would challenge her authority on what she was born to do. Nothing but crickets from the group at this comment. Silver Fox said that she will have this year, and asked if anyone wanted to counter her claim. Rude said that based on her tone, that would be a foolish position to take, and he would not squabble about the seer anymore. He turned to Dujek to ask a question. Itkovian's attention, though, was brought to Krupp, who was smiling. Itkovian couldn't help but wonder if this fat, short man was the epicenter of the intended result. Rude is heard saying that they have matters of supplies to discuss. Kafal was heard saying that the Barghast have come prepared. Itkovian watched as Silver Fox strode away, no longer caring for the minor topics of discussion. Paran, Whiskey Jack, and Quick Ben had departed a bit before that. Gruntle was dozing off to sleep in his chair, and Stoney stared at him in disgust. The masked council and their masks held a gloomy expression, and Itkovian wondered how much control they actually had over their masks. The new shield anvil of the Grey Swords was staring at him with sorrow in her eyes. Itkovian couldn't help but think that it was pity as well. He felt like he was becoming a distraction, so he stepped back, turned around, and left. He hadn't walked far when he ran into Paran and his group waiting there. A new member was with them, and she stared at him. Meeting her gaze, he thought to himself that there was pain in those eyes. He thought to himself not to cast light on that, as it was too much. He came then to another realization, and that was that Fenner was gone, and so was the protection from the world's grief. Paran is heard saying his name, and that he had hoped that the former shield anvil would come. He introduces Whiskey Jack, Quick Ben, and then finally Korlat. Paran asked if Itkovian would like to join them. Itkovian accepts the invitation and then apologizes to Korlat. Korlat explains that she was unguarded as to what he was and very careless. The others stared at the two in confusion. Whiskey Jack led the way, and Quick Ben was walking alongside Itkovian. Quick Ben took the opportunity to chat with the former shield anvil about Silver Fox. Itkovian explained that she was new to him, and he didn't really have much say on the matter. Quick Ben then asked that he didn't sense anything about her. Itkovian said that he didn't say that. Itkovian explains that she had done a terrible wrong, but it weighs upon her as if it was nothing. Quick Ben is heard saying that this was a problem. Paran interjects behind them and says that it was Night Chill. Paran explains that Night Chill is more than they initially thought. Her male companion, Belurden, was her balance, but Paran sensed nothing of him. Quick Ben then asked about Tattersail. Paran replied that she was in the shadows, but uninterested in what was happening. Itkovian asked some questions about Silver Fox, and Paran explains the best he can, saying that there was a warring of wills with 3 souls. Itkovian said that there wasn't a war of wills, and that they actually walk in agreement with each other. Quick Ben stated that this was the most surprising revelation of the day. Krupp is heard asking them to hold up. They wait as Krupp breathlessly makes his way to them. Quick Ben asked if he had a few thoughts, or 10, about dear old Silver Fox. He admits that he was witness to the said gathering and then goes off on a tangent. Paran swings him back around to the subject at hand. Krupp advises that all is well with Silver Fox and to just be at ease. He stumbles over his next word, and they all ask him why he stumbled. They all stop, and Paran tells Krupp to get on with it. Krupp, in Krupp fashion, begins to explain that the subject indirectly concerns this ex-mercenary that walks alongside them. 2 ancient gods, 1 smear spirits, the first to run with mortals, the Talanimas of blood back in the day, and their kin, who follow in kind with the Talanimas of today. He asks if anyone remembers the bedtime story of how the 2 were separated, the horror that was that of the crippled god's descent. The elder gods did what they could, but were younger than the 2 wolf gods. Paran begged Krupp to stop. Krupp says that he cannot. He then continues on. The dullest of memories are all that remain, and even those are succumbing to the gloom. Fragile fragments of those memories come as fear-induced dreams, and promise of rebirth and reunion are lost. Disparate spirits are united in their resolve, a spirit of hard edges to hold to the other their course, despite all the pain the others must bear. Another spirit has to clasp hard the hurt of abandonment until it can find proper answers. Yet a third spirit filled with love and compassion, and a fourth possessing a power to close old wounds. Quick asks who the fourth in Silver Fox was. Krupp answers and says that it is none other than Pran Cole's daughter. Akovian observed that Whiskey Jack and Corlat were standing at a tent ahead. Staring back at the group, Krupp continued on to say that what he meant by all that was simply to be patient and have faith in Silver Fox. Paran demanded that Krupp called that an explanation. Krupp gave a very Krupp explanation, and Akovian headed towards Whiskey Jack and Corlat. As he approached Corlat, set off, Paran called out to him, and Akovian responded that he was reminded of the Gredfallen ale, and it had been years since having it. Krupp asks about himself and sharing in the delicious drink. Quickbin said by all means, go for it. Krupp then headed the way Akovian was headed.
Oh, nice job, man. That one was
good. Good. Yeah, that's a big scene.
Yeah, that was big. All right.
I think that's probably the biggest one either of us have had, I think.
I feel like, yeah, I know that Chapter 4 of Deadhouse Gates starts off with a really long section too. And I
don't think it was 18 pages long, was it?
I don't remember, but it took me 4 pages to summarize it.
Yeah, it might be good like in the future, because like there was a pretty good like parlay, and then the secondary meeting with Paran. So like maybe it would have been better to break that up.
Right. Yeah.
I know you guys do like full sections, but I feel bad for you.
Oh, it's okay. This is the bed we made. You know, I mean,
it comes around to both of us.
In the second book, because when we read Gardens, Derek went first. He summarized the sections, and then I did the even numbers. He did the odd, and then at Deadhouse Gates, I did the odd, and he did the even. I would say Derek's been getting pretty fucked in this book with the sections he's had to summarize. So
for the most part, yeah.
So, like I said, we could probably have a whole episode just on this section. I picked up a ton of stuff, so I don't know how long it's going to take to really get through all of it, but here we go. After some playful conversation, we're kind of going back to the beginning of the summary with Hatan and Akovian. Akovian can just never let up, can he? He seems like such a lovable stick in the mud, and nothing will break him. And it's just, he's referring to an offense that he potentially made towards Hatan and insinuating that she should shut up, because Hatan talks about the tale that has run rampant about him through the clans because the witches never shut up. And then Akovian makes a comment about neither do younger Barghast women. And Hatan was just like, very aggressively flirty about it. So it's just like, can you just drop your mannerisms and just josh around like a little bit? Like, I don't know.
He's very defensive around her. she wants to make some advances on him, and he is scared.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but I mean, Fenner's gone. Like, sow your oats, man.
Hey, he is holding on to the vows that he made.
Yeah.
It's
Which is respectable. I'd like to see him, like loosen up a little bit,
which he does a little bit actually, because one of his other vows was to not drink, and he's now gonna go have some Gredfell and ale.
I guess, is there specific places where the vows are talked about? Because I think, Derek, we both had a question about like the Revy's rules.
So the Reeve doesn't have too many things actually brought up. It's one of those things that unfortunately you kind of just have to infer what generally is in it, where there's a couple specific rules, but then the rest of it's just kind of like, you can kind of just insinuate like what would a cult like war group maybe think of for their stuff, but like they are very much sticklers for the rules, so it's all like a code of conduct basically. But yeah, unfortunately, like I would love to have a whole little handbook of Fener's Reeve, just be able to go through it.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Just thought I'd ask.
A lot of those vows that he's talking about, they're just vows that he has put on himself as well. So like the no drinking and the no playing around, I don't believe those are part of the Reeve at all. It's just his own personal vows that he took for his group. So it's like, to him, it's a promise to his god kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even earlier in the book, Carnatus was just like, like, hey, being too hard on yourself, man. Like, go have some fun.
Yeah. He's a very, very much a stickler for the rules. He's very high strung.
Yes.
Which is very lovable about him, but also, yeah, it's just like, man, come on. Like, have a little fun.
Right. Which, kind of like brings me to my next topic. And that is like, he recognizes that he looks like, officer-ish. So he takes off all of his flair, trades his helmet for a Malazan helmet to make him look less officious, and it's just like, I get it, but at the same time, like, why you gotta be so serious about your position change? You still have a lot of wisdom to pass on.
I mean, it just kind of seems like he doesn't really know how to let it go. It's just all he's known for however long, and how do you just let that go overnight? It's a huge change.
Yeah.
We're seeing Akovian as a very broken man right now. It is all that he can do to hold himself together right now, to be able to still be a source of wisdom for the new Grey Swords, because he doesn't consider himself in the Grey Swords anymore. He is basically just lost right now. His whole entire family's dead, basically. The two brothers specifically that he had, the two other leaders, are dead. He feels like he's a failure. Everything that he's pretty much ever known is gone. His god, who is a real tangible thing that he's had a presence with, is gone. It's rough. So we're in the middle of a very broken man, and it's a little hard to watch because he is just so hell-bent that he is a failure. So it's a little rough in the scene, especially because everything he's doing is just taking everything the worst way, afraid that everybody's pitying him because he's feeling like that. So of course, if they're looking at him, that's probably what they're thinking. And it's rough, man. yeah, he's not doing good. He's not yet done, but he's not doing good.
Okay, so as far as Tog and Fanderay, isn't he the mortal sword?
No.
How did I miss that?
Well, he was Shield Anvil for
right,
Fina.
Right. But then when he went to the Barghast camp to essentially switch gods, didn't he? I mean, I know he's no longer Destriant and Shield Anvil, but I thought that the Barghast were crowning him mortal sword.
I might just not have remembered that, but yeah, it's. I mean, from his wording here, he doesn't think that he has any sort of control over the Grey Swords or anything.
Right. So maybe I misunderstood. I know that that confusing that section was confusing the first time I read it. So I may be not understanding things correctly.
Yeah, I thought he was just like a regular dude now.
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought he was saying, "Hey, like, you guys make the decisions here." I could swear that that's what was happening. I would have to go back and like fully reread it.
You're probably right. I am probably misinterpreting something or misunderstanding something. The large table that sat beneath the tarp. This has to be the table with the Master of the Deck card painted underneath it. The one we saw near the beginning of the chapter. The beginning chapters. You remember, Derek?
I do remember that, and I guess I did not pick up on if this was that table.
I mean, they said they were going to carry it along with them.
Could be.
I would think so. I would think it is it. I know Brood was using it.
Right, and then the bridge burners stole it and, yeah, had to return it.
Yeah. So I that's what I would assume is that is the table.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, not something I picked up on and not something I would like fight you on by any means, argue about it. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, they specifically bring attention to it and say it's a big table. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past it.
There's obviously some importance to the table. So, all right. My other thought here, Itkovian is simply there to observe. He's got no opinions. And I know that we've maybe talked about Itkovian to death, but whether this adds or detracts, who knows? But I can't, as a reader, help but feel awful for him. Like, he's just putting so much weight on his shoulders, and like, even Brood, when he's just like, you didn't fail, you were just outnumbered. Like, nobody could win in that situation. And that is a logical statement coming from Brood. And I mean, it makes sense, but nothing will persuade him otherwise. And he's just, as we've talked about, a dedicated man. I feel like he's just really being hard on himself to the point where he's stripped away his own title. He feels he has no value. But to Brood and everyone else, like, he still has valuable insight and could actually play a big role in things. And he's just downtrodden, and it just makes me feel bad for him.
You're given this task of a impossible situation, and I mean, obviously, he really took it to heart that he needs to do what was asked, and anything else is just failure if he can't do it. And so, yeah, Justin, I mean, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. He's just hard on himself. Definitely could let up.
Not always the easiest thing to do, though. I thought that Caruli's response to Brood, and they're kind of like, well, I asked a question, you told me no, then you asked a question, so I'm going to just say that we both asked questions, but there were no answers. I just thought that was just kind of a badass thing to say.
Yeah. It's just like, well, I'm not going to be pushed around. Like, hey, you want something? Give me something.
Right. Like, this is an exchange, right? I started. You didn't answer. You want to answer from me? I'm not going to answer. Fuck you. Yeah. So that one part of this beginning of the parlay, Wrath Shadow Throne kind of makes a quick about Rake. I thought that what Wrath Shadow Throne said about Rake was kind of a dick thing to say. It makes it seem like he spent every waking minute with Rake and knows every move the Lord of Darkness will make. And then Caruli's rebuttal just makes me think that Shadow Throne and Rake have battled before, but I can't even recall if that's info we have yet. If not, then I think it's a little Easter egg here.
Well, something definitely went down in Gardens of the Moon. You can't think of any reason that Shadow Throne might not be a fan of Rake.
Oh yeah, he killed 2 hounds.
Yeah. So there was a direct confrontation there where Rake killed 2 of the hounds, and that's a big deal. So Shadow Throne hates his guts, like even more so.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty positive that's all it's referring to.
Okay.
Is that?
I mean, I remember that scene in Gardens. I don't know why I didn't associate it here.
No, I mean it's tough. Like, because a lot of times there'll just be little things, and because like, why would Wrath Shadow Throne know? And it's like, oh well, he's generally aware of things that happen with his god, kind of thing. It's difficult. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Memories of Ice was supposed to be the second book So you're supposed to go from gardens on Genabacchus to right here. So like this would have even been a conversation where you'd be even more closely in time to reading with the previous actions.
I kind of almost, I don't know if I really like Dead House Gates. So I don't know if I would, like, I'm kind of appreciative of the break. And
I think it works better.
Yeah, I'm almost compelled to say that I like that cast more than I like this cast.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
No, I'm on board. I mean, I'm a fiddler boy, so getting to have any sort of fiddler action is great. And Diker's just fantastic. Yeah, it's a good matchup. I saw you guys nodded when I say that. Did you guys knew the story already?
Yeah, he lost his computer or it crashed or whatever. Something happened. I remember he told us about it.
Okay.
And we've heard it from others also.
Okay. It's one of those things of like, it's a little side information that's kind of fun to pick up on.
Wait, what?
For sure. That Memories of Ice was supposed to be book 2.
Oh, right. And then he lost his computer. Or then,
something computer wise happened or whatever. I don't remember exactly what the story was, but I think Lee told us when we talked to him, and maybe others too. I'm pretty sure we've heard it more than once. Yeah,
it's like Aragorn broke his toe, during the scene where he kicked the helmet. It's that kind of stuff where everybody in the community that knows it is like, oh. Real quick, Justin. So when they went to go to the witches to try to re-sanctify the Grey Swords, he brought along 3 people that he was planning on making the new ones, and he was trying to be hands off. And when he was trying to suggest that the male recruit that he brought to be the mortal sword, the first witch is like, no. The mortal sword has already been found. Like, he exists, and then they only mentioned the shield anvil and the destriant.
Okay.
So they've only got 2 for 3 right now.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I feel like that makes more sense.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that with that's another reason why Ikovian especially is just like very hands off, because he doesn't feel like he even has the right to make any comments or anything.
Sure, but it almost kind of feels like he wanted that result.
Oh yeah. He brought them there to be not a member of it anymore as well, because he is a Feener man, like he doesn't feel like he could make that commitment to a different god.
I feel like it would be hard to change after like your whole life. Like now we gotta worship another god. Old habits die hard, I suppose.
Yeah, especially when like he does have a person. It's not like he would chat up Fenner and like go have a beer with him, but like he did have a personal relationship with him where Fenner supported him like spiritually, where when he would take on these emotions and stuff, take on these burdens, it was like Fenner had his hand on his back, like helping to support him kind of thing. He mentions with Corlat saying that like, right now he's open to the world and like any sort of grief and stuff that would come into him because he no longer has a god protecting him.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. I don't know why like that was eluding me a little bit, but I mean, I guess this is the beauty of being a first time reader.
Yeah. And you guys are doing a phenomenal job, by the way, with like picking up on stuff. Like you guys are doing a great job. It's not easy.
Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate that vote of confidence.
Yeah.
We don't mind being wrong though. So like,
that's half the fun.
Yeah.
That's half the fun. So, I mean, I don't want to try giving you too much either, but anything you guys have questions on, I like answering.
That's fair. I like asking questions you won't answer. So getting back to the section at hand, Stony Shadow Throne is, talking about Carulia and how he's unfit, and in a much more elaborate in the book than what was summarized. But basically, I love Stoney's logic in this one. She's just a sarcastic wonder that she is, commenting on how whether Wrath Shadow Throne knows how tiny his reign really is, and if Carulia they're suggesting that Carulia just doesn't know the secret handshake. So it's just, if I were in this world, I would be attracted to her too. Like,
Yep, I feel you.
So I love her sarcasm. She's just so quick-witted. It
Yeah, very quick on her feet.
makes me giggle. And then I know that there was this comment that Karuli kind of makes, when he's telling Brood provisionally that he accepts everything that Brood has been talking about. And I don't know if he's like means this directly with the Mass Council or if he's insinuating other players when he anticipate that a few masks will be coming off.
Yeah, I think he's just making a pun with it, but like,
Okay.
I mean, even referring to things like the interaction between Rathburn and Brood. Like, I'd say that's kind of a mask off. You reveal more about his intentions with the hammer and how Rathburn is just being a selfish priestess. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's more what they're talking about. Is just the kind of general part of it.
I had a feeling that the Rathburn thing, not having faith, was Karuli anticipating that he knew all this time. So
Yeah, Caruli's pretty quick.
yes, he is. But
He's got a lot of wit up there.
not as quick as Quick Ben.
Nope.
Just sitting. I know that I brought up in a previous section about Shield Anvil Norrell gave a very beautiful response, and I wrote it down as a comment because I just love it. And this kind of goes back to like our tennis scouring conversation and the response to Brood from what she said about, or what he said about how he could find something worthwhile in such creatures, creatures referring to Tenascauri. Captain Arol said that we all are worthwhile, sir, once we assume the burden of forgiveness and the effort of absolution. Like, heard that line just gave me chills. And basically, going back to your point earlier, Derek, is that I think that if you approach the Tenascauri with empathy and willing to forgive them for their catastrophic sins, then just maybe the effort of absolution will be worthwhile. So that's kind of like the stance that I take. And I think that's the stance that Captain Arol takes. Like, everybody seems to have this like, oh, well, they're just this, like hair on my asshole, that just is giving me a pain. So I got to get rid of it. But then there's Captain Arol, who, like, truly, in my opinion, understands the gravity of the situation. Like, let's take something really shitty and turn it into a positive. Let's use what the Panion was using to control and turn it against him. Like, what is more powerful than your belief being thwarted? The shit that you were spewing from your mouth into making these people think that you're a god turned against you. Like, how debilitating is that for the seer?
Nice poetic justice.
Right.
Do you think that, like, I think it's one thing to, you forgive them, but on some level, like, they need to be able to forgive themselves too. And I don't know if they can.
It's definitely would be a hard journey for them. One of the big things with the Malazan series is the idea of compassion. It's difficult to give compassion, and sometimes when it is difficult, it is most important to try to do that. But obviously, I mean, there's circumstances in every situation, and I'm excited to see you guys read more.
That's fair. The next thought that I had was about Brood in this conversation with his hammer and his responsibility. Cruel kind of saying that burns faith that Brood would find a third choice, right? And here I'm like, does this third choice have anything to do with Quick Ben and Telemandus? Like, I'm not really sure. I don't know what you think, Derek, but you think in the future all mages will just have like stick snares riding on their shoulders as they travel the warrens unscathed, or fashion one for Cruel and Burn? I don't know where to take that, but I'm not sure I understand what his third choice actually is.
I kind of thought it was just like the third choice was just Burn trusting him to do whatever he thought was right.
That's what I was leaning towards too, of just the third choice being just like, they aren't saying anything specific, but just that he would find a solution to it. Because the both of those two choices kind of suck.
Mm-hmm.
Just destruction one way or the other.
I like that, especially with Karul saying that, oh, she had faith in you. That's pretty cool. Find out that a god has faith in you to do something.
Gotcha.
That feels pretty good.
I guess I'm just like, yes, okay, now I get it. Yeah, so if I think what I was trying to say here is that if Brood recognizes that there is a third choice, that it is not choice A or choice B, my thought is the third choice going to reveal itself to Brood. Eventually, Brood will kind of figure out Quick Ben, right? Like later on in this section, Calor is just like, well, wait a minute, how was everything cleansed? You know, like blah, 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 blah. So I think that it's only a matter of time before Quick Ben is found out about Telemandus. And I think that this could be a really good thing to thwart the crippled god.
Yeah, I like that thought.
We'll read and find out.
Okay, my next thought was exactly that. It's like, I feel like Calor's shock to this revelation of like the Warren being cleansed is kind of suspicious. And I know that he maybe has a foot in bed with the crippled god, but like, I don't know if that was really confirmed yet or not at this point. And if he is, I don't think that this is something that the crippled god could foresee. The fact that there's a way to stifle the poisoning of the Warrens.
I don't have anything for you, man. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much.
Graceless is eyebrowing me, so I'm just going to take that as all right, I'm onto something, but I will have to Rafa.
Well, you definitely have some ideas there.
I know things sometimes.
Yeah, like I said, I like how you guys are thinking about things.
Mm-hmm.
I think you both come up with some good stuff. You know, a lot of it's wrong, but it's very interesting.
Alternate edit. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you guys have been told this like 16 times as well, but rereading is like very clarifying as well. Like even just a single reread will reframe a lot of conversations quite strongly. And I learn something new every time I read the books again, which is like, wait, what the hell? Like, how'd I miss that? But you know, yeah, I'm sure you guys have heard it a bunch, but it's definitely designed to be reread.
Well, and I mean, like we do this in week chunks, you know, we read the chapter almost as soon as we're done recording. Within a day or two, we're reading the next chapter. Mm-hmm. And then it's like the summarizing, and then it's like, you know, doing the episode, and then it's reading again. So like you're reading a new chapter maybe once a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on the situation. So like not a very good way to read a book, but
it takes a while, but you are thinking about each little section a lot, you know, which you wouldn't be experiencing probably like half the thoughts you guys are having if you just read through, because your brain just kind of sits there and goes, okay, well, I'll just get more information here in a second instead of trying to think about the implications.
I do remember because I left my copy of Gardens of the Moon at my job, and there was a very particular day, and I'm like, I had forgot Memories of Ice, and I'm like, ooh, I just kind of want to read. So I think I read like the first 200 pages of Gardens of the Moon, and it was surprisingly 10 times easier than I remembered it being.
Yeah, like, it is a lot easier. Just knowing like generally how the world works makes everything go so much easier. It's fun.
Yeah, it definitely was.
But yeah, okay. I did not like Gardens the first time I read it.
Yeah, you kind of have to appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, I was a dumb kid though. It's okay.
So Krupp smiled after Calor kind of demanded to know why there was no poison detected in the Warren, and kind of banking off the conversation prior, it kind of makes me feel like he's aware of Telemandus, but seems to kind of like be a little apprehensive to what that is, because it doesn't seem like this is really anything that he's seen before. But then again, you know, the poison Warren thing he probably didn't know about either. So I think that he's just impressed, but cautious.
Yeah, he picks up on things very quickly. Do you remember a conversation that Lady Envy had, where she goes off by herself and has a conversation with somebody?
With Cruel?
Okay.
Yep.
I was trying to remember if they said that was him or not, and I didn't quite remember.
How
Do
he
you
was
remember?
talking through Garath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some big stuff in that conversation that kind of explains why Karul can see something having an effect on the Warrens and then immediately like comprehend what's going on there.
Yeah, I think that was the chapter where I had guessed that the Warrens were Cruel's like body.
Mhm.
We've got a couple of wins in this book. Moving on. So, as Krupp was the one to respond and explains to Silver Fox that, you know, it kind of explains the Reyes situation at the end of Gardens of the Moon. I just thought it was amazing how just a few simple sentences can just make the end of Gardens of the Moon that much clearer for me. As that's because I don't know if it's just because we understand more of the world now, but it was just I don't know. It added that extra bit of clarity to the ends of Gardens of the Moon.
Yeah, because like, what the hell is an Azoth? It felt like it came out of nowhere, like in Gardens of the Moon, and you're just like, what the? But like, yeah, now you've seen a couple other ones, you understand ish, or at least
Right.
what they do, you know.
Yeah, the concept is there. What it all means at the end of the day. So, some Dujik explained, you know, that the point that he was trying to make was that, you know, Silver Fox was just insisting on detachment, and therefore anything that she decides to land to do are separate from everybody else. And, you know, Dujek kind of coming in here and saying like, well, you know, as a Malazan veteran, you know, this is simply not true. Like I just thought it was great that there was, I don't know, you don't really see Dujek with like kind of the wiseness. It's usually Whiskey Jack that we see kind of departing the wisdom on everybody. And I think that he is speaking in absolute truth, right? Like Silver Fox thinks she has to go about this journey alone, as well as the Talani Mass. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're all into this together. So
It's going to take all of them, I think.
right. I guess the other thought that I had was, you know, it's just after Silver Fox is like, you know, I'm the one who's going to take out the seer. Anybody who has questions, I don't fucking care. Unless you want to challenge me. And Brood's just like, whatever. I'm not going to do this anymore, you spoiled brat. Like, just cool. You have at it. And then Krupp kind of has this weird smile that Itkovian observes. And he's just like, I wonder if he's at the epicenter of this intended result. All I had to say was, Krupp. Seems like he liked the fact that everyone was just okay with Silver Fox taking on the seer. But again, I feel like if I had to guess up at this point, like Krupp is the way that Cruel is able to manifest his thoughts. Because as he suggests throughout this section here, that, you know, manifesting physically is hard. So I would imagine that manifesting mentally, maybe not as challenging, but still a challenge. So that Krupp, for whatever reason, is his vessel. I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying. I don't know. But yeah.
Is there a reason you were thinking that?
Because like it makes it seem that like Krupp's wisdom is almost like top tier, right? Like you're never going to get any better than Krupp, you know? And I feel like obviously Cruel and Krupp have something to do with each other. And I don't know if like Cruel is just using Krupp's wisdom to formulate something. I don't even really know where I'm going with that. But
I can see that. I mean, because like Cruel was using Krupp's dreams in the first book, you know, kind of going back and forth. So I mean, you could have something there.
Keep on it, man. Keep going with it.
Like Krupp is Cruel's mind in this warren of body, you know? I don't know.
All I know is Krupp is very magnanimous.
I think that's his favorite word.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Only a few more thoughts here. When at the end, when Silver Fox, or not Silver Fox, but you know, Ikovian, Paran, Whiskey Jack, and Quick Ben are having a conversation, and they're talking about Silver Fox and this war of wills And Covian is just like, War of Wills. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. They actually walk in agreement with each other. And so does that mean that all three of them agree on what they did with the Talan? Because, like, I don't know. I feel like Tattersail, just knowing who she is as a character, I feel like that's something that she was more or less forced to agree to. So, like, while he's detecting that they all agreed, I don't know if, like, he's detecting the reasons why they agreed. Like, I feel like there's more to that.
Well,
Never mind. I will continue.
I think Eckovian is pretty on board. Like he understands and sees very well what's going on, at least in terms of the emotions inside of her. Now, what does that actually mean? Like, why would they not be fighting about this? I'll never tell.
Well, last couple of thoughts here. As Krupp is explaining Silver Fox and Tog and Fanderay, he's talking about like whatever these four souls are, right? And she says that a spirit of hard edges to hold to their course despite all the pain the other must bear. I feel like he's talking about Eckovian here. But then there's another spirit has to clasp hard the hurt of abandonment until it can find proper answers. I feel like that's more of a relationship to Silver Fox. Yet a third filled with love and compassion, and a fourth possessing a power to close old wounds. Like, I don't know what this means.
What's the next sentence there? Quick asks who the fourth in Silver Fox is.
Yeah.
So like they're talking about the souls that are inside of Silver Fox.
Gotcha.
And so
do we know who? I'm drawing a blank. Then do we know who Pran Cole's daughter is? Yeah.
It's one of those things of if you remember the last. Well, I think the next note here talks about it a little bit. Do you want to bring that up, Raider? So the spirits in there that he's talking about, the spirit of hard edges is Night Chill. The spirit with abandonment would be Tattersail. And then the third one, love and compassion, was Bellerdan. Night Chill's a lover kind of thing. And so then they bring up the fact that there's a fourth. And it's kind of shocking to me that nobody else has considered that there might be a fourth one there. Like they just think about the three main players. And it's like, okay, but sorry, then go ahead.
I have a little tinfoil, Justin, because I was thinking about this. Because there was another point, I don't remember where it was in this chapter, but somebody was like confused by it. They didn't know what was going on. And they said, sorry. And then explained that, there's the different souls within Tattersail. And I think it happened twice. And I'm like, does this just like spit it right in our faces? That's like somehow sorry is tied up in this.
You're talking Apsalar?
Yeah. I don't know.
No, I don't think Apsalar has.
But it was just, there was like two instances where it was the word sorry, and then they went on to explain whatever it was. So it just stuck out. It seemed odd to me.
Gotcha.
Good attention to detail.
What I think is, do you remember at the second gathering and, Silver Fox berates Pran Cole for abandoning her, etc., etc. But then one of the other Talan came up as just like, whoa, your anger towards him is understandable, but actually unneeded because he is not your father. Tool is, right? So I feel like the Talan are less inclined to lie than Krupp would be. So, and also he was talking about Tog and Fanderay just a moment before, which I think is the reason why I thought the first comment was Eckovian. But how can it be Pran Cole's daughter when it's Tool's daughter too? Am I remembering things wrong?
There's a couple of reasons why they're saying Pran Cole here is for me, the biggest one is just the fact that he's the one who was there. Like he was physically at the fire there. Right. And so like he was the one who was actively participating in the rebirth and the transfer and stuff, which is why like you could say that that's him. And then two, the fact that when they show up, he claims that he's the father to let Silver Fox like have a focus for her abandonment issues and an outlet is what he's trying to do as a gift to her. But like I do think he probably does see himself as her father partially. And I mean, for me, like the tool thing is kind of just like that was just kind of a little inconsequential thing, kind of thing. It was like it just happened to be there, so it's not like he wasn't an active participant or anything, kind of thing.
They just used his Warren, right?
Yeah, like his presence was there because I mean he's the sword, the first sword. He has a big area of effect, an AOE.
Okay. I don't know if I quite wrap my head around that, but I'll take it.
I would just say that, like, I would consider Pran Cole thinks and feels a fatherly affection towards her, and thus, like, saying it as that is like, okay, yeah,
okay. But, I mean, I have a feeling that Silver Fox and Tool will meet somewhere in these next 5 chapters, or even in the next book, or the book after that. Some point in time in their journey, they will meet, and maybe there will be more explanations. I don't know. That was all of my thoughts for that hour and a half section that we just did.
That was a big one.
Yes, it was.
Am I talking too much?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
No,
Just wanna make sure.
these
I don't,
these episodes run rather long, but again, we just don't want to leave any stone unturned, and any tips, tricks, clarifications that rereaders and Malazan experts can bestow upon us without spoilers, we will take.
yeah, just want to make sure I'm not like interrupting or, preventing or trying like providing too much or anything,
So this has been great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
The only scenario that I can think about is because I gotta go pick up my kids at about a little after 2:30. If we're not finished, we may just have to find another time to wrap it up.
Well, what? I've got 2 sections. You've got 1 left. Well, we can get going here if you guys are ready.
Yeah.
The 2 Marines were not far from where Silver Fox stood. One asked how long it would be. The other said it could be all night. She thinks she's communing with the Imus, based on the dust swirling around her. The first said they had been forgotten. The other said she didn't think so, but maybe they weren't needed anymore. She doesn't need bodyguards. That, and they already saw what they were supposed to see, so they were overdue to make a report. They weren't supposed to report, the first says. If anyone wants a report, they're supposed to stop by for a chat. Only now, no one had stopped by in a while, which was her point, but that didn't mean they should just up and leave. Plus, someone was approaching now. The other Marine said they didn't. The first Marine said that wasn't true. It was Horatus from the Trigally Trade Guild, and the other is a soldier, an Ellen lass with a nice sway to her hips. But they were coming their way. Another voice spoke up, saying she was too. It was Silver Fox. She said this was a fell thing. One of the Marines asked what Silver Fox meant. What she was referring to was a gathering of women. One of the Marines asked if they were going to gossip. Silver Fox said among the Rivi, it was the men who gossiped, as the women were busy giving them things to gossip about. One of the Marines was surprised and said she thought that there were ancient laws against adultery. People would get stoned or banished. Isn't that what tribes did? Silver Fox said for women, betting the wrong husband was a great sport, and of course, the men took it too seriously. Horatus approached and said dusk was a magical time, and that she would ask something of Silver Fox. Issues of supplying these armies were still present, and even though the white-faced Bargas agreed to supply much of what was needed, they will still be strung out. Silver Fox said she needed the Tellan Warren. Horatus said that was correct. They assumed that the Warren was unaffected, and if the guild could use it. Silver Fox says it is unaffected, but there still is the potential for risk for the caravan within the Warren. The throne of the Beasthold is contested. There are renegades among the Imus, and the vow is weakening. Horatus appreciated the warning and said risk was always accounted for with the trade guild, hence their expensive cost. So, would Silver Fox permit their use of the Warren? Silver Fox said she didn't see why they couldn't. Did they have a way to access it, though? Horatus said they did have access, but in respect to the Imus, it had never been used. This surprised Silver Fox, and she said she would like to meet the guild's founders one day. Not even the Malazan Empire's strongest and most knowledgeable mages were ever able to crack the secrets of Tellan. Horatus says they would be delighted to meet her. For now, Horatus wanted to introduce her to the new shield anvil of the Grey Swords, Captain Norrell. She said the Grey Swords are now sworn to Tog and Fanderay. Silver Fox said that was an interesting choice. Norrell said the two wolves were no longer lost to each other. They had caught on one another's scent. But Silver Fox doesn't appear to know this, which confuses her. Silver Fox says she doesn't particularly care and trailed off. Norrell formally asked Silver Fox to release the Tlan Eye. They were the children of their gods. Silver Fox only looked at her and said she did not understand. She still needed them. Norrell asked what for, and Silver Fox said for herself. Norrell didn't understand. Yes, the Eye ran with the Imus, but they are not to be owned by anyone. Silver Fox said she must deny her request. Until Tog and Fanderay can she will not yield the Eye. Norrell said she risks her life. Silver Fox asked if the wolf gods would declare war on the Imus. Will they come and the Eye come for their throats? Norrell didn't know, but she held fear for Silver Fox as Tog and Fanderay were ascended beasts. Who could know their hearts? Silver Fox asked where they were. Norrell said south. It appears they will all converge on the Panion Domain. Silver Fox said she still had time then. Norrell again reminded her that achieving whatever her goal was could get her killed. Silver Fox said it was an even exchange. The two Marines looked at each other. Those were legendary words in One Arm's host. Hitan arrived and said it was unfortunate there were no men worthy of joining this meeting. She, too, wanted to gossip. She asked Norrell if Ikovian still had held to his vows or not. She wanted to bed him. Silver Fox replied that if she could catch him, she could have him. Hitan said if Ikovian had 50 legs, she would still catch him. She asked Silver Fox about Krupp. Silver Fox didn't understand what she meant about him. Hitan said Silver Fox was a big woman and she could pin him down, leaving him squealing. This horrified Silver Fox. Hitan had heard that while she may look like a woman, in other ways she was not. Hitan's advice was to grab the spear with both hands. Silver Fox shook her head and asked for wine. Harada said this was a good idea. Norrell looked to the Marines. Taking off her helm, she said, let the wolves wait. She cannot dread to hold comportment as her predecessor did. Hitan challenged her, asking, cannot or will not? Norrell said she would not and hoped the wolves would forgive her. Hitan said one of them would.
There's so much like foreshadowing in here, and like it feels like the tip of my tongue. Like I understand it, but I can't make sense of it. And that is like the frustrating part about nearing the end of these books is like it's right there.
Yeah, I was a little confused. Like, so these Marines like make a report. So I assume that they're reporting to Krupp, but they're only reporting if he comes by, I guess, to be less suspicious or something. So like when he brought those desserts to him or whatever they were, like, did he buy them off? Is that kind of what happened?
I think that he was schmoozing them, trying to get information out of them about the things that they observed, because these two essentially have taken up their own initiative to just kind of follow Silver Fox around, maybe check on her mom, tell Silver Fox how her mom is doing, etc., etc. So I think that who they're supposed to report to is actually Whiskey Jack, but Whiskey Jack hasn't been around to ask anything, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
I think is just being Krupp.
Very possible. Krupp is always just Krupp.
Yeah.
Nor the Tlan Eye to be released. So, I mean, it got me thinking like maybe the Tenoscauri aren't going to be the answer for the Grey Swords after all. I don't know. I mean, I know it says that the Tlan Eye aren't meant to be owned by anyone, but I think being owned and being used are different things. Maybe the Grey Swords will use them somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, see, this is the part where, like, it seems that Silver Fox, the Tlan Eye, the Amass, the Mybe, and then, like, the Hold of the Beasts all seem to be Tok and Baljag all seem to be, like, wrapping themselves up into a little ball of understanding. But at the end of the day, they're not connected to each other. They're just in this ball. You know, there's maybe some connections to each other, and like that's where my brain is like, okay, how the fuck does this work? Like the Tlan Eye are companions of the Tlan Amass, and then Tog and Fanderay are the mother and father of all the Tlan Eye. You know what I mean? Like there's just all these like thoughts, and I'm like, what the fuck does it mean? You know? I think like if I had to predict anything, Tok and Baljag are the Tog and Fanderay reborn. I guess you can say, just based on like the subtle hints. So like that, I'm pretty confident on, and maybe that would make Talk the mortal sword now that I understand that more. So, but how everything else falls in line, no idea.
And Graceless is just sitting here with all the answers, but can't say anything.
This is fun to listen to.
All my crazy left field theories.
So I will say I've got a video that I'm trying to make right now where I go into some of this mentioning with like the beast hold and stuff. And it's something that people argue with me quite a bit on.
What you're saying is when we finish this book, I should check that out.
Probably not. Because the where I'm going to be discussing that is going to be in the spoiler section. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that comes across multiple books.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I could have sworn that for whatever reason, the Barghast were also like part of the Hold of Beasts as well. Am I like misunderstanding that? Like, I don't know how I got those two associated.
I mean, the Barghast are mostly Amas.
Right. Okay. Now I gotcha. Yes.
They're a very recent offshoot of the Amas, basically. But I don't know directly. You bringing it up, it reminds me that there is some mention of that, but I don't remember how much there is, like what this specific context is. But I do, like, you are remembering something.
Okay. All right, Derek. Sorry, that was like a really bad way of answering your question.
You're good, man. My last thought here is, Silver Fox is talking about repayment, a gift she had sworn, and I'm not remembering anything about that. I don't know if anything's sticking out in your head about what it is. And like the only thing I could think of is maybe it's something for her mother. I don't know.
I feel like, well, I mean, I guess it says gift, not past tense. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I guess it would all depend on the Mybee's perspective. I feel like her gift in Silver Fox's perspective was she saved her mom from the abyss with like the undead dragon and then brought her to the realm of being chased by wolves. So I don't know how much the Mybee would consider that a gift, but yeah, I don't know. This one I'm assuming that we'll find out eventually about this one.
Gotcha. And then I forgot my last point here is we get one of the classiest dick jokes I've read in my life, I think. So
yeah.
Grab the spear with both hands.
Heaton knows what she's talking about.
It sounds like she's got some experience.
Oh, I'm sure she does. I would not mind living amongst the Barghast at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're pretty good.
Huh?
If you remember the comment earlier about the bugs and Humbrol Tower's like, oh, you should just cover yourself with veteran grease.
Yeah. No, yeah.
But
That's
I
okay.
mean,
It doesn't bother me.
It's just all lube, Justin.
Yep.
Right.
Slip and slide.
Exactly. What better way to have fun? Slide right in.
She's a great time.
Yeah. It's a good ride for sure.
That's all I got, Justin. Here, if you want to, we can get through your last section and then we'll bring it home here. Hopefully before you got to go.
Yeah. All right. Call covered the Mybee with some furs. He could tell that there was frantic movement behind her eyelids. He looked down at her for a moment longer and then got down from the wagon bed. Murillo was standing nearby, tightening up some supplies to the wagons. The two men had purchased a pair of horses from some Mott irregulars. Call sighed as he was reminded of the man who sold them the horses. The guy was pulling lice from his hair and eating it. The horses seemed to be giving Call some trouble, and Murillo told Call to give them some sweet root as a means of bribing them to behave. Call refuses this idea as he thinks it will reinforce the horse's bad behavior. The two spend the next few moments attaching the wagon to oxen and mounting their horses. Call's horse did a sidestepping motion as Call got on and ended up thudding against Murillo's leg, trapping it. After being released, Murillo gently got down and released the horses from the tent peg. Call's horse stepped back, planted, and then reared. Call did a backward somersault, landing on his feet, just to lunge backwards to avoid being kicked in the chest by his horse. The horse ran off with glee, bucking along the way. Murillo asked Call if he was all right. Call replied to get him a lasso and some sweet root. Just then, horns were sounded and Call gasped, saying the march to Capustan has begun. Murillo suggests that they ride in the wagon and then return the horses to get their money back. Call says that the wagon is overloaded as it is, and besides, the Mahdi regulars said that there were no refunds. I don't really have any real comments about this section. It's always great to see Call and Murillo doing their thing, but I don't know if there's really anything that I want to call attention to. The only thing that I had was the other day I was thinking about the Maibi, because, these books make me think when I'm not reading them. I feel like there's some similarity between the Talan and the Maibi, right? Like, the Talan just want to rest, right? The Maibi just kind of wants to die, but they're both forced to just keep going, Like, there's no getting what they want. And I just find, like, I wonder if there's, like, any significance in the similarity there.
I think that's a good thought. I hadn't thought of that, Justin.
All right. But yeah, that's all I had. We can move on.
Sorry, certain things get said where it's just like, I don't want to, influence any thoughts, whether positively or negatively,
Oh, that's fair.
It's like, I like your train of thought, and I don't want to affect it.
Fair enough. It's all good. No worries. Well, what should we say? Should we take her home? Bring her back down?
I think this might have been my favorite section of the chapter.
It was pretty good. And definitely out there.
Yeah. All right. Clouds churned low over the waves that crashed into the mountains of ice. "Oh my," said Lady Envy. The three Segula crouched near a boulder and greased their weapons. They were a ragtag group, wet, covered in mud and armor in tatters, riddled with minor wounds, deeper cuts stitched with guts. Baljag stood off to the side with a length of spear jutting from her shoulder. It had been 3 days and she would not let Envy near her. She only glared north with fire in her eyes. Behind her stood Gareth, shivering uncontrollably, half mad and enormous. He would let no one near him, not even Baljag. Out of the crew, only Lady Envy appeared to be untouched by the war they waged. She spoke, wondering how they would follow Tool across this, and why couldn't he be a Talan elephant or whale so they could ride on his back across? Mock was at her side and said he would still fight him. Envy asked when that became more important than delivering their message to the seer. What would the first or second think? Mock only said the first is the first and the second is the second. Lady Envy rolled her eyes. Mock continued, if they didn't have their hierarchy, then they could be ruled by the weak or those who would use them against the helpless. They are aware of other lands. They know more than they think. Mock said there were matters to discuss. Envy asked if he meant the storm or the fleeing remnants of the army that chased them here. They would not return, she said. Mock said she had sent a plague among them. Envy denied this, saying it was a miracle they hadn't gotten sick sooner from eating each other without cooking first. Mock said Gareth was also sick. Envy said no, he was just dealing with his wounds still. Mock said no, his spirit had long since healed those wounds. The fever within him was the same as the Panions. She needed to do something. Envy said this was an outrage. Mock cut her off, saying only mistress. She relented and asked if he saw the irony of the situation. Poliel, queen of disease, had allied with the crippled god, and she took offense to it. It was cunning of her to raid her warren and cause difficulty to her allies. Mock didn't think her allies would see it that way and told her to heal Gareth. She said she could not get near him. Mock said Gareth could no longer stand and would lay where he was until she healed him. Envy calls him a miserable man, and if Gareth tried to bite her, she will destroy his loins, and he will be so cross-eyed that everyone that looks at him will laugh at his stupid mask. Mock again tells her to heal him. Envy says of course. He is her companion after all, and he needed to stop interrupting her. She approached Gareth, whose eyes were glazed. He did not raise his head as she approached, and Envy apologized for a lack of attention and did her business to heal him. When she was done, he turned his head and peeled back a snarl. Envy snapped back, saying she healed him, and this was his thanks? Mock replied that she made him sick in the first place. She told him to shut up and that she wasn't talking to him anymore. She could see Gareth's strength returning even as they watched, but she wanted him to stay away unless he wanted a pet. Mock stepped between the wolf and Envy and said, they have need of both of them. They needed to end their squabbling. Envy said he couldn't understand him. He was a dog, and an angry one at that. Gareth went to stand next to Balljag, who paid no mind. Mock said Balljag sees something. This surprised Envy, but they climbed up to look. The ice had captured some sort of building, less than 1,000 paces away. Envy said that this was odd. Mock named it Mekros. Envy didn't know what that was. Mock explained that the Segula home was an island, and occasionally they were visited by the Mekros, who rode the ocean currents. They always tried to raid the coast, but forgot how the previous attempt worked out. They entertained the lower Segula. Envy said this particular neighborhood looked empty. Mock suggested that they hitch a ride. Envy thought it was nuts, but Mock said it looked like a viable solution. Gareth took off towards the floating neighborhood, and Envy wanted to know why they could never talk things through. Mock said he saw a path forming where they should stay mostly dry. When they arrived, they saw no sign of Balljag or Gareth, but could still follow their steps. Senu led the way, and eventually they made their way inside. Mock said they should check out each of the buildings to figure out which was most structurally sound. Envy said she would leave them to the boring stuff, while she was left to make sure this floating thing would get them across Coral Bay to where they needed to go. Mock only said as she liked. Envy snapped at him and told him to watch himself. She said they apparently forgot themselves and to think on what her fullest capacity in irritation would be. She sighed as another face appeared. She thought it was Tool, but it was a different Imus, with 3 broadswords of black iron and an unknown style stabbed through its chest. She asked if it had a name. It replied, saying it had heard the summons from the direction it was already going. The voice was feminine and said she would attend the second gathering. She was Lannis Tog, and would bring word of the Iphael and Kurlum Imus and their fate. Envy said this was fascinating and asked what those fates were. Lannis said she was the last of the Kurlum, and the Iphael were all but destroyed. Those that are left cannot extricate themselves from the conflict. Lannis didn't expect to survive, but she had. Envy said it was horrific indeed, and asked where this conflict was. Lannis said a sail. Nearly 29,000 Kurlum lost, and another 22,000 Iphael lost. They had lost the war. Envy said it appeared they had found a Jaghut tyrant who was more than their match. Lannis said it wasn't a Jaghut. They were human. I feel like this was a pretty big bomb to drop on us.
Yep.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, this section I enjoyed a lot. She says, why couldn't Tool be here and be a Talan elephant or whale? And I just appreciate her bluntness and humor with things. Just like, I don't know, that's kind of my type of humor. And I don't know about you, Justin, but like, I definitely like read this as HC being Envy here.
Oh, yeah, I did too.
Yeah, it made me smile a lot. Like, that would have been a lot of fun. But yeah, like, I don't know if she was just kind of like oblivious to Gareth being sick and not really realizing that she did it. And Mock is just like, you need to heal him, and just keeps pressing her until she finally does it. And, then she's like, okay, I healed you. And Mock's just like, well, yeah, you should have, because you made him sick in the first place. I don't know.
Is there a reason why she's so oblivious to it?
She's been alive for hundreds of thousands of years.
I guess that's a legitimate reason.
She just doesn't give a shit like about anything. Like, it's just like life is just a game to her kind of thing. Where she just like, did her own little thing, and then she doesn't even pay attention to her companions enough to even realize that Gareth is sick and not just injured. Like, because she just doesn't even like consider them. Like, I don't know. I feel like she doesn't even consider like other human, like living beings as living beings. You know, she had no problem trying to enslave these 3 Segula, just be like, okay, you're my servants now. And just like, they're other people still. And she's like, no, my servants. And just using them as playthings, essentially. Like, yeah. I get why Talk was scared of her, quite frankly. Because, I mean, she's kind of terrifying, in my eyes, at least.
Yeah, but Talk definitely had some balls. Like, he definitely said some things.
He loved teasing her.
Mm-hmm.
Her immortal face all worked up and, like, upset. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely some flirting for sure, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, Talk could have totally, her, and he was just enjoying the flirt and trying to like piss her off a little bit with it, and that's all he wanted.
I
Yeah,
guess
just enjoyed out of it.
if Lady Envy is so apathetic, then how the hell did Cruel convince her to do this?
Well,
To do what?
I mean, don't you remember in their conversation, like, she seemed almost like she was forced to do this. And it all seemed to go back to him being able to make her feel guilty about not being at the first chaining of the crippled god. You know, but like even then, I don't know if I would still be like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I just like the apathy and like the reasons why she's doing this don't make sense to me.
she's definitely an enigma. And I mean, Karul being the fact that like who he is when he reveals to her like who exactly he is, like, I mean, that has a certain weight to it, you know, where she's like,
Yeah.
all right. But yeah, you brought up something about that is just with the chaining and stuff. It's like, some conversations coming back here after having read all of the side books and stuff, some conversations are very frustrating because they don't make sense. That's not a here or there thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
This Imus that's got 3 swords stabbed through it. I mean, that's quite an image there.
Oh yeah.
But very striking. You know, it says it's an unknown style, and I guess now that I'm thinking about it, maybe they're unknown because it's just from this completely other continent. Yeah, I assume that'll be important in some way that we just don't know yet.
Well, I know Silver Fox and during the second gathering, they had talked about these two clans fighting a distant war, and they were unsure if any of them had remained. There's at least one.
Yeah, they're going to get some sort of an answer here.
Yeah.
You know, Lana says it wasn't a jag hut. They're human. And I kind of feel like Lady Envy's reaction was just like, oh, but yeah, so I know there's one of the novels is a sale. Yeah, who the hell are these people? Because it sounds like they're a lot better warriors than the Talanimus because they've just decimated them.
I bet you I can predict who it is.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's the Forkrula sale.
Sorry, I just made a weird face, which is why I laughed.
It's the other founding race.
Well, I will say that the four crew sail are not human.
God damn it. All right, fair enough.
just to put that out there.
Are they like
Let them down gently.
Are they like undead mammals? Where like the
Oh shit, you guys haven't seen Four Krill Sail yet.
No, we have not.
Or even know if they still exist.
Well, I'm assuming based on
Damn, you guys don't know shit.
I know.
I could just make up anything right now. I'm just kidding.
You totally could. I mean, they're the last elder race to like make their appearance.
Yeah, and I mean, you know,
change them all.
We barely get to change them all. Like you're seeing like the undead guys, and then you get mommy a little bit, but it's like, give me more. Come on. Yeah. That.
I'm sorry. What you cut out at the beginning there?
Oh, I can't say too much about this last part here. I will say it was a very long wait.
God damn it.
For it. Yeah.
All right.
And we'll probably be waiting longer. I'm sure by the time it hits us, we'll be like, "What are they talking about?"
No, you'll well, I remembered at least because I did I thought this was drop like a chapter thing. I was like, oh hell yeah!
Well, I'm definitely excited to read this next chapter. You know, the beginning of this
me
next
too.
book. So
I'm excited to listen to you guys next video.
Have you listened to us before?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I just come in and I have a hard time doing individual episodes of things. So I like to wait for a decent chunk of things, but I've been keeping up with you guys.
Cool. Well, thanks.
That's
I just watch, here and there, So I listened to I was trying to listen to the last couple in order to get a refresher too and make sure that I wasn't saying anything crazy, but
Sure. Well, hell, that's cool to know.
yeah, it's always fun watching you guys.
That's awesome.
Like I said, you guys have been doing a good job of coming up with things.
So we're like 1.5 and a half readers.
Yeah. You actually I mean, you guys are taking the time to dissect and actually think about stuff, which takes a long time, unfortunately, but you're definitely picking up on a lot more things than most people do, I would say.
I know I've said it before, but I just I can't really imagine.
Yeah, you need time to digest. These books are heavy
Yeah.
or dense, well, whichever works.
And it can go on. I'm sure it's not going to get any lighter, as it were.
Yeah. It definitely becomes easier as you learn more about the world. Like Justin was even saying with picking up Gardens of the Moon again, and it like, oh, you could just flow through and it made more sense. That does kind of happen where, you naturally pick up things as they're coming because now you understand what ascendants are and stuff like that.
Sure. Well, any closing thoughts here on this chapter, guys?
Not at all. I'm really looking forward to continuing on and looking forward to wrapping up this book. I definitely am getting excited for the next one. So,
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know that I'll get to reading it tonight. I'll have to watch House of the Dragon and, other stuff. So we'll see. At least by Tuesday, I'll read it by Tuesday. So we'll see. See if I get there tonight.
I think I will probably start after I get back from picking up my children because they will overtake the TV. So, yeah.
There you go.
So, yeah, I'll definitely text you with what my thoughts are. Well, not my thoughts, but encouraging you to pick it up. But yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, Graceless, thanks for taking, 3.5 hours here to sit down and talk with us. It was a lot of fun having you.
Yeah, it was great.
Having your insights.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, it was very fun talking to you guys. Good luck.
Thank you so much. We'll need it.
All right. Well, guys, have a good rest of your weekend here, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Later.
Bye.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest.